Hello and welcome to the Week in Review with the impregnable Doooovid and Church of Entropy. This week we'll be discussing all sorts of interesting news, current events, and relevant subjects. Over to you, Doooovid, for the introduction.
Okay, thanks a lot. I was hoping it would be more upbeat and lively and to have more a happy week. Although a lot happened this week, I still think a lot of it's somewhat on the negative end. So I thought I'd do a more story about overcoming suffering and a more heartsick deeper emotional, probably sad song. So the song I'm going to sing goes back to Israel from about 500 years ago, and it comes from the time when, after the Spanish expulsion and the golden age of Jewish Spaniards, where Jews were very powerful in Spain and had like banking and different industries, and then it ends with Ferdinand and Isabella the same year that Columbus sails to America, 1492. They signed the Edict of Expulsion, and that leads the Jews going into Poland and Amsterdam, but also it leads to the return of many Jews to Israel. And related to some of what we're talking about, idol worship, the Jews that had been in Spain and had been successful as merchants in Christian culture, now they're back in Israel and are capable of living as fully Jews in Israel. And these different sages get together and they're recognizing they've been basically completely penetrated by Christian culture, even though in Spain they had largely been religious Jews, but that in the culture of Catholic Spain was largely influenced by Catholicism and Christianity. And then when they're back in Israel and they're capable of living according to their own heritage, they realize that basically, like in a clear way, that we've been idol worshipers, and possibly the sin for idol worshiper is death. So the story goes that the rabbis had this big meeting in this town called Sfas in northern Israel, because Jerusalem was kind of in ruins. So they settled in this area, northern Sfas, and the one rabbi speaks and he talks about all the sins and how basically they'd been influenced and possibly committing idol worshiper by functioning in Christian culture. And it says after the speech, they voluntarily, one after the next, took lashes from each other in order to extract the sin for themselves, that they had been so influenced by this foreign culture, and to be able to return to the roots, they voluntarily took lashes until blood was drawn. And mortification of the flesh, they had like bags of thorns, and they popped in these bags of thorns and rolled around in like old, if people have read the old classics of the original saints, or even in Hinduism, where the mortification of the flesh was seemed to be the only way to rid people of sin. So unfortunate, I think some kind of purging, like I don't think we have to mortify the flesh in order to purge our circles of this negative energy, but something like that has to be done in order that we could move forward. So one of these rabbis of the time, he wrote a book called Sefer Haredim, and Rabbi Eskari was from the circle of rabbis that basically recreated the modern Judaism 500 years ago from these rabbis who had been expelled from Spain. And he wrote this song, Bivli Mishkan Evna, which technically means I will build a tabernacle in my heart, which could also be translated as my heart is set in stone to glorify God's honor. I will place an altar in the tabernacle dedicated to God's divine rays of splendor. And the eternal flame, I will take upon the self the fire that fueled the binding of Isaac. And as a sacrifice, I will offer God my soul, my unique soul. So a more moving, slow song in the unfortunate situation that me and you seem to find ourselves in, where our hearts are set in stone. We want to push forward these ideas, but to some extent, we kind of have to offer ourselves up as martyrs to be sacrificed to push these ideas forward. I wish that wasn't the case, but that appears to be the case. And so this is the song I have for this week. I'll put it in the chat if anyone wants to hear while people are coming in. Bivali Mishkan Evna Lahadar Kivoidoi Umishkan Mizbeakosim Lekarnoi Hoidoi Ulaneta Mida Kakli Ese Shakeda Ukorbanak Rivlo Efsnafshi Esnafshi Hachida Uneta Mida Kakli Ese Shakeda Ukorbanak Rivlo Esnafshi Esnafshi Hachida. So with that, I think we could start our week in review. A lot happened, a lot of relatively good stuff, but I think, just the setting the tone, our hearts are set in stone. The eternal flame will not go out no matter what they try to do to us. And hopefully they're going to stop trying to extinguish the eternal flame, and they're going to recognize that our hearts are set in stone and there's nothing they're going to be able to veer us off this path. But until that happens, we might have to keep on repeating these messages till we could move forward in more the direction we'd like to go.
Yeah, so maybe we can sort of talk about, number one, what we're happy about, and number two, what we're hoping will improve. And maybe, so I'm really happy that I got to do the formal debate with Claire about God being personal versus impersonal. I think that was a great start to our formal, well, it's not the first one we've done, but it's the first one I've done. So I really enjoyed that. I thought it was great. We had post stream afterwards. It got a lot of views, and I was very pleased with that. And Erica was the moderator, the citizen reporter. She's in the chat. So thank you again for that. That was wonderful. She was very patient, and that was great. And did you want to talk about maybe the things we are interested in seeing improve?
Yeah, so maybe I'll just do my quick week in review because I'm close to my 1,000 subscribers actually. Like I'm up to, I guess it takes a while to update, so I'm not sure. One place is telling me I'm I think the 950s, and then one is telling me like 965. So I had my third week with Deshaun Marquell, and we talked in my house about the upcoming Democratic primaries, and reasonably well received, decent audience. And I did my Ask the Rabbi 8 and 9, number 8 on Thursday about conversion to Judaism, something I'd been researching for a few months. It was almost like a graduate seminar type thing where I read a whole bunch of papers on the history, how conversion to Judaism worked in ancient times till modern times and the flow of thousands of years, and just interesting putting like what does it mean to be the nation or a nation within a nation, how do you join a nation, and how has that changed over thousands of years of history. And then I did another one last night. I think you were streaming actually at the exact same time. We both had pretty good numbers. You had maybe 40 or 50 viewers. I had 20, 30 viewers, and we were streaming at the same time on Edenics, which is a linguistic concept according to biblical chronology, that Hebrew is like the origin of all languages. And there's this professor actually based out of Canada that I have gave me a whole bunch of research. I'm looking on his Facebook just to see which part of Canada he was in. But he's put together like thousands of pages of research about different word origins or the similar words. And so the Sanskrit is the origin of all languages. It seems more likely, but historically in the West, Hebrew is the origin of all languages, was more accepted by Christians, and then as the archaeological evidence. But there's a lot of similarities between Hebrew and Sanskrit, and just to look at the linguistics, or to be able to speak and understand a whole bunch of languages, is very interesting. So I had that research ready, so I just got it off my desk. I did the stream. Thank God they were relatively successful. And I think from your streams, it's like I have my Discord up. I have like 20 people in my Discord, but we're still in this largely like trolling phase where people don't seem to like legitimately like, let's put our heads together, our research together, and forward these ideas versus like these dramas. So I had like Hypatia and Cassandra like going at each other for like an hour in my chat. So I was like, okay, thanks for joining my chat. But like for an hour, they're just like insulting each other straight. I'm looking at like super high tea, and like half of his messages are getting held by Google. And yeah, I think you had similar problems where you even had to take down a majority of your streams this week because people are just not capable of obeying like certain levels of decency that's necessary for the streaming. So at the same time, we've been having success. Our numbers at the biggest they've ever been. Looks like we're, more people are interested in joining our circles, but at the same time, there's a lot of issues like behavioral problems, or people that don't seem to be on board with what we're doing and are just there like constantly trying to drag us down, or like in the chat, like people are just there like every second with just like negative information in the chat, and it's so I guess the good and bad, it might always be that way, where the good and bad relatively is always going to be equally balanced. And maybe if we find good moderators, I actually gave you a wrench, and I gave Forex Shark a wrench, and I gave Zed Dez a wrench. So now I have 3 wrenches in my chat. But like I think like if I get Brundlefly a wrench, he would just like use it and ban people, and wouldn't carry out my wishes. And you might have that issue, and it may pay to talk through like how we're going to try to move forward as our platforms are growing. How are we going to be able to moderate this to keep on focus, and so to say, divvy out responsibility or raise people in the ranks as we go, where like Erica, I think her streaming's picking up. Hopefully she'll be joining on. She was on Luke Ford, and so other people in our circles might be having success. I just said Ashel Day was on critical condition. So loosely in our spheres, there's been a lot of success. So I think the week in review is going to become more and more important moving forward.
Yeah, I'm really happy with what we've been able to create here. And yeah, as far as the moderators in the chat goes, I want to remind my mods to, if the algorithm catches something and says it's held for review, I don't want you approving those comments unless they're actually constructive, right? So we've got a lot of people coming in talking about irrelevant things that are completely off topic, and what they're doing is impeding free speech. There really is no such thing as free speech, because speech is always constrained by ideas. And so I'd like to see people talking about what we're actually talking about on the stream as much as possible. And, if you're getting into fights with other people, i.e. on Doooovid's stream between Cassandra and Hypatia, just block the person. It's very easy to do. You just have to click on their name and say block. You won't see their messages anymore. And you won't have to get into these fights that really just end up distracting from what it is that we're talking about. And, if you want to talk about these other ideas, if you have concerns, there are other channels you can do that on. We have specific topics we want to explore. It's not up to us to talk about the things that you want to talk about necessarily. And we're, very open to new ideas. But at the end of the day, this isn't the place to come and air your grievances, right? And unfortunately, there were 2 streams this week I had to take down. The first one was with ConOps, where I invited him on to try to resolve our differences and more or less agree to disagree, but he was not at all open to that. And he just wanted to sort of derail it, misconstrue my position, and basically insult me and the other people on the panel. And then more people joined, and then it started into a big conversation about subjects that, frankly, I'm not interested in. Now, you may think those things are important, and that's great, but it's not my job to find the same things as you important. And you have your own channel if you want to talk about those things. No one is censoring you. And you're in fact censoring us by coming on. For example, the idiot fellow man came on and he had made a 5-hour stream insulting me, and I wanted him to come on to confront me, hopefully resolve it. But what did he do? He just came on and started quoting the Talmud. Like, that is not what you were asked on for. So, I didn't write the Talmud, buddy. Neither did Doooovid, right? So get a clue, right? And it's not my job to let you come on my stream and hijack it for your own interests. I've got my own interests: quantum mind, consciousness, science, lots of interesting things, but please keep it on topic. So if people can keep that in mind, we'll all be better going forward. We have to constrain things so that we can actually build on something. So I had some great streams this week, a lot of viewers. One with Claire that I had to take down, unfortunately, because Jay threatened to report it. And I'm not sure what exactly was on that stream that was able to be reported, but I figured, okay, it wasn't a particularly good stream. We didn't really talk that much about proper logic. It was more just Claire trying to divert the conversation back to what she wanted to talk about and her usual talking points. I've heard them all before. Anyone can go to her channel and check those out. This is not a platform for you to come on and hijack it to promote your stupid ideas that no one cares about. And you've been told numerous times that no one cares about. If you don't like it, do your own show. That's about it. So sorry to be so grumpy. It's just, you're a grown person. You're not a child. Like, I don't really want to have to repeat myself. And if you can't discuss the subject we're talking about, don't come on. It's really as simple as that. So my week was great. I had some good streams, good viewership. Thank you everyone for watching. Really appreciate it. And it's unfortunate that those 2 streams had to be taken down or made private, but I'm just going to keep doing that if it gets derailed. I'm not going to risk my channel for you coming on and selfishly promoting your own agenda. Over to you, Doovid.
Yeah, I mean, it's relatively, I guess I'm naturally relatively good at following rules, even if I don't like doing it. And I occasionally have my comments held back, largely due to like dollar signs or like percentages or something for whatever reason. Google, I'm not sure if it's a setting or if it's just Google doesn't like dollar signs in it. But I almost never make comments that need to be held for review because, like, I know there's rules, I know there's censors, and I have self-control that I don't say things that need to be censored. And it's something I worked at. I did a whole like multi-hour stream on the rules of hate speech and going over the YouTube policy and even the international laws in different countries like Europe and even things about like testy subjects like the Holocaust that have different laws in places like Europe, or World War II revisionism, so people know what the current state of the law is, regardless of our opinion on the issue. Even if we you might disagree with the law, like speed limits or something like that, or wearing seat belts, but usually after a few tickets, people start just following the rules. So generally I'm a follow the rule kind of guy, and I don't mind having a smaller audience. With it's nice to build up an audience, and sometimes you have this bait and switch where you have to do things to make yourself seem in a way you aren't in order to build up an audience. But generally I'd rather have a smaller audience, and I can't get inside the heads of the people, like super high testosterone or something. Occasionally he makes it sound like he knows intelligent things, but he doesn't seem to have like the self-control where he's just constantly saying things that Google's holding back, or maybe Cassandra's going to be here soon, and whatever reason, that could be a persistent troll. We've had persistent trolls in the past, and I think we just move on with our ideas. Like, we've said our piece, people know what they're doing. If there's people that are just like, I don't like you, I'm going to continue to troll you, we'll have to deal with that. And the people who do like what we're doing should just be more careful. And that's part of the week in review that we were talking about before we started, that made the delay. And we need this self-improvement as a community. Self-improvement is easiest when you work towards self-improvement as a community. And there's so many different things that me and Jennifer and probably a lot of people that are part of this community would like to be advancing on, and time is limited. You're like, okay, Gandalf is more intellectual and a reader and likes research, or there's different people who have different abilities, and things like World War II do interest me, but it's a type subject where you need to know a lot of information to be able to intelligently talk about these subjects, and just having opinions about some random or even relatively close point, or even like international politics, like Citizens Reporter or something like that. If you want to intelligently be able to talk about these issues, you have to spend more time offline researching than online talking, and that's what our community is trying to create to help each other advance these issues and topics. And me and you have found quite a bit of success in that. You had your debate against Claire, and I think it was like overwhelming. Basically, everyone you destroyed her. It wasn't even close. And
well, I think Claire might disagree with that, Doovid.
Yeah, and the point is, okay, like, does it pay to score things? And we look at these debate rubrics, and I don't even agree with your concept. Like, me and you have disagreements on the issue, but it's just a matter of research. And like, the reason I pushed off my debate with you is I think we have a future doing these debates. Like, I think I'm going to hit 1,000 subscribers, maybe even this week. I think we even might make money off of it, have super chats, and we'll see when I hit 1,000 subscribers and have super chat enabled if people are throwing money down, and whether that's the case or not. I think we're going to have a future doing these debates, and I want to do it right. And I just haven't had the time to research properly. And maybe we'll talk it out, now that you've done a debate and saw how poorly it worked out with Claire, in what I was talking about, like the necessary research and structure to do a complicated debate. Like I was talking about, can you logically prove God? So hopefully, we'll talk about that more, and like, how would something like that be moderated? What does a good debate look like?
Oh yeah, I wanted to ask you, because the gentleman, fellow man, came on and started basically derailing the conversation by asking questions about the Talmud, or basically just quoting the Talmud. So I indicated that Doovid is probably one of the more open-minded people to discuss these things. But could you tell us what you, in your own words, what you think a good faith conversation on that subject might look like?
Well, it has to be someone who wants to learn. So if he's looking, okay, Doovid studied in the top Talmudic academies in Jerusalem. I took 5 years out of my life to basically full-time study Talmud. I have on the shelves behind me, tens of volumes of Talmud, commentary on Talmud. I learned Talmud constantly. In fact, I'm about to finish the whole Talmud. The Talmud's not a small book. The Talmud is like over 40 volumes, and it has 2,000 pages. And generally, like, adult Orthodox males will divide it up to a page a day, and it takes over 7 years to finish. And there's so many different precursors, because the Talmud records arguments over basically like a 1,000-year period. So it'd be like finishing the Vedas or something like that. And so if it's like, okay, Bhagavad Gita, someone could read Bhagavad Gita, but it's like, have you finished the Vedas? And he's like, do you even know what the Vedas are? And the Vedas comprise so many books. To finish even the main books of the Vedas would probably be like a 20-year effort. So a good faith conversation has to be the desire to learn, and the recognition that there's an information asymmetry, and the purpose of the conversation is due to the information asymmetry balance, where you have information being conveyed one person to the other based on the information asymmetry. And that's a good faith conversation. So a lot of these conversations, he doesn't, look at it like, okay, this Doovid guy, has dedicated most of my adult life to studying the Talmud, knows a lot about it. He could probably answer my questions. He probably wants to tell me about the Talmud. So it's not really a good faith conversation. It's it's just a chance for him to air his grievances, and that's not what I consider a good faith conversations. I mean, you have the same example. You have a degree in physics and mathematics, and you've spent years of your life, or however you understand your reincarnations, understanding your topics at hand. So a good faith conversation recognizes that information asymmetry, and it is kind of like a question answer. And you could be skeptical, and you could say, like, why should I trust what you're telling me, in different type things. But the conversations usually are very clearly not good faith when the person who doesn't know what they're talking about insists on explaining it to you.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to describe it. Like, if you're coming on to get information, understand that there's an asymmetry there, and we're not necessarily interested in your opinions unless it's a well-formed opinion. And you're free to disagree, but we would appreciate you to honor our positions and understand that we didn't come to these positions overnight. And if you want to actually benefit from the conversation, you have to come at it with a good faith attitude. So thanks for sharing on that.
It was like Claire telling me about, like, well, what about Lord Jonathan Sacks or something? And like, okay, so Doooovid's not going to tell you I'm a bigger rabbi than Lord Sacks or something like that. And I'm sure, you could give examples of, if people knew their gurus or something, they're the Vedas, a bunch of names of, or reincarnation or science, where, say, okay, are you really going to argue with Professor Hamerov? Are you really going to argue with, some of the major, gurus that know this information? But you're saying those people don't have YouTube streams that are readily available that you're going to be able to talk to and ask them questions. So if it's even, and like people, say, like, oh, if you really knew so much about the Talmud, like, how come you're doing this Hare Krishna stuff, or you're only a half Jew, or different claims upon me, that would be a question to my authority. And then the whole question, well, why'd you ask me in the first place? Saying, I'm not saying I'm a perfect authority and that there aren't better authorities, but so it comes down to, you're asking the person to share their knowledge, and at the same time you're questioning their authority on the issue. It makes the conversation, well, what do you want to have the conversation from the first place then?
Yeah, you can't really have it both ways, right? Either you think we have something of value to say and you're willing to learn, or you don't. And go ahead and challenge me to a debate. If you're so averse to my ideas, and I know a lot of people are, I'm happy to debate with you. But, there's a line there where people want to start insulting me based on irrelevant stuff or flat out falsehoods. It's just, we don't want to go down that road. It's, there's other places you can do that. It's not my interest. I'm not an expert on Talmud. It's not up to me to answer for the Talmud. Okay.
Yeah, I'm going to say, like, in terms of the stream, let's say we're basically equals, and we both bring areas of expertise and knowledge, and that's why we make good streaming partners. And say, okay, if Professor Hamerov or bigger name came and was like, I want to do the week in review with you, dump this other person, maybe we would have to discuss that if it came up. It's unlikely to come up, or if it did come up, maybe there's an issue of loyalty or whatever. But you have to work with the resources you have available. And it's like when you're in a class and you have to pick a lab partner, you have limited people among your colleagues and associates to choose from, and that's the price of learning and moving forward on the ideas. And even I'm pretty forgiving and have a lot of mercy and faith in people to be able to improve. And like, I don't have people banned in my chat, and I give people countless chances, and let you put the link in the chat. I put the link in my chat, and willing to give people chances to grow, and saying, like, our viewers, those are the resources that we currently have to work with. So we're going to make a good faith effort to work with whoever is coming on to honor our stream.
Perfect. Yeah. So I had a great week, I think. Claire seems to be a little bit upset. She's been streaming on her new channel there.
Catholic Christine Ramsey for the hypocrite that she is, and how unprincipled she is. I see Tom Anderson says no one cares. Are you Christian by any chance? Are you
I spend almost no time insulting people on my stream, even your stream.
Tom Anderson? Are you Christian, Tom Anderson? I'm not going to stop saying this until you answer in the chat. Tom Anderson, are you Christian, Tom Anderson? Are you Christian, Tom Anderson? Are you Christian, Tom Anderson?
So it seems like Claire has gone into some sort of infinite recursion loop. So if you like to pray, maybe say a little prayer for Claire. Hopefully things get better for her real soon. She seems unable to let go of certain bad feelings that may have been forthcoming subsequent to our little debate that we had. So
I
yeah,
don't like to ramble. We could talk about streaming etiquette, and I agree. Like, there is a certain thing when you start streaming, you don't want to have dead time. So it's good to ramble than rather have dead time. But as we have more people wanting to come on or more knowledge to share, like, yeah, I mean, just breaking, like, you're rambling, you're repeating yourself. Like, Luke Ford's very good about that, where he'll stop someone like, okay, you've reached a point where you're just repeating yourself, and move on. I had a little scuffle with Brundle on Luke Ford's stream today about his streaming and, his kind of like egoism, in the sense, like I was saying, like, Claire, like, I don't really have negative energy. I don't spend any time in my streams bashing other streamers. Occasionally we'll talk a little bit about it, other streamers, and maybe point out the mistakes that we think we're making, or they're making. But bashing people is not something I do. And like, I think Brundle, that was part of his demise. Like, when I was streaming with him, it was going good, his channel was growing, and he insisted on bashing you, like opening up his streams. And I was like, okay, besides the fact that we're friends, they're just like, how is that helping you? How is that helping him in his streaming? And in Claire, in that respect also, and just like, it's bad karma, it's going to lead to your demise. I've given you my opinion on the matter. The people may not have chose, like, I reject your advice, Doovid. And so you just have to leave them to their karma. And if I was wrong about my understanding of karma, and it turns out that it doesn't lead to their demise, that's fine. Like, all the best, more power to them. But I'm going to stick with my understanding of karma and just try to avoid conflict and negative things. And even that thing with no apologies, like, that was pretty rough. And we were throwing blows almost. And that basically died down to nothing. Like, okay, me and no apologies had a big little argument, and now it's nothing. I'm not saying like we're friends and buddies, but that conflict, I just let it go, and now the conflict doesn't seem to be there anymore, which is the way I like it, the way it should be.
awesome. Welcome to the show, Erica, the citizen reporter. You've had a very exciting week.
That conflict, I just let it go.
Got a big name on your channel, so why don't you tell us how things have been going for you this week?
Can you hear me okay? Check 1 2 3.
You're coming through just fine.
All right, thanks. It's been a great week. I had Dr. Dutton on. It was a pleasure. We talked about his research into transgenderism, and they found that there is a very high correlation with autism. So, knowing this, and he affirmed to me that there has not been any in-depth, proper scientific research into the causes of transgenderism. And we spoke about the treatment modality that they have currently for transgender people, and in my opinion, it's very it's putting them at great risk. I have to go into detail about it and all that, but yeah, I don't. I think this is basically abuse of the patient, bottom line. But if you want to get more into more detail, I encourage you to go watch the video. But that was exciting. I had a great time with him. He was very nice. I am currently working on going over a documentary with Dennis Wise. The it's the most recent one, not Communism Through the Back Door, but the other one with the who's the Gentile form of the communists? I can't remember. Does anybody know in the chat?
Mm-hmm. Historically, Marx, Engels, Stalin, Lenin, Mao.
No, but no, the lodges. I'm having a complete brain fart on this. Anyway,
Masonic lodges?
Yes, the Masonic lodges. Yes, he did a great documentary on that. Thank you. So I have a little bit of brain drain right now. So we're gonna do that in a few weeks. He's gonna come on and we're gonna talk about that. And I had a great time moderating with you guys. I'm learning a lot as far as logic and debate and until it's just very intellectually stimulating. And again, going back to your earlier conversation, I don't agree with a lot of what people say on your show, for example, right? But I'm not going to act like an asshole and pick fights with them. You know what I mean? Everybody's entitled to their opinion, and I respect that. And not only that, but it's your channel, so I don't fault you at all. And in fact, I would encourage go at yes. Ban people because it's distracting in the chat. There's people here who want to learn. There's people here who want to hear what you have to say, right? And then you've got a small group of people who come in and they distract and they start fighting, and then it just turns. I mean, sometimes shit shows are funny, but not all the time. And just some of these shows just don't know when to stop. But anyway, aside from that,
don't you think if someone comes in with an aggressive tone and making accusation, it kind of sets the tone for the discussion to sort of guarantee that it's not going to go well?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So we celebrate difference of opinion, but like I keep saying this, showing emotion on the internet is not the greatest idea. So if you disagree, cool, but get your thoughts together about why you disagree first, and then it'll be a much more productive exchange because the emotions won't be coming into it. And this is a lesson I think a lot of people need to learn. And getting so upset on the internet really doesn't reflect well on your credibility. So thanks, Erica, very much for keeping us on track. I thought your moderation of the debate was wonderful. We had a great time, great conversation afterwards, and to me it was very positive because we at least got to see an example of a debate that I think a lot of people probably it didn't even occur to them, the impersonal versus personal questions. So that's what I'm all about, is opening the door to new ideas or old ideas that people aren't aware of, and just broadening the range of topics. And we'll get a lot closer to some type of consensus in the long run if we can explore all the ideas. So going forward, what are your plans? Do you have any more guests lined up for your channel? Are you making any more appearances?
I'm not making any more appearances on other channels. I am still, well, I take that back. There's a channel called Freedom Free for All, and I believe it's August 27th. I'm going on their show to talk about the Department of Defense Pentagon cloud contract that they're, like how we all have cloud with our computers and our phone. Well, the Defense Department has a cloud account, I guess, if you will. And what they're going to do is they're going to subcontract out to a private company, which is the first huge mistake. And second is one of those companies is based in a foreign country. So, I just see disaster here. So then that's why I went on the Luke Ford show. And people need to understand, there's people out there who think, oh, well, you're going on so-and-so's show, you shill for them. No, hello. The host isn't my target. It's the host's audience. It's the audience members that I'm targeting. I want to let people know I'm trying to bring, get awareness to this issue. And if you're going to do that, you have to talk to people that you may disagree with, and it really isn't that difficult to do. It's just show. And like for my channel, I tell people, you're not going to troll here. And yeah, it is freedom of speech, but you can't just say anything. You're going to have to articulate yourself in a manner that shows respect. And that takes time and would usually diffuse emotionally. But, so I, we have too many, channels out there that are pushing this high emotion, low thinking type of, program out here, to people. and you can't critically think if you're emotional. 9 times out of 10, if you make a decision after you're done being emotional, that decision will be different than if you had made it when you're emotional. 9 times out of 10. So, but anyway, so I'm trying to look more for other channels that I could go on and spread the message to bring awareness to. It's part of my in real life activism that I do. I have sent out emails to the DOD, the FBI, my representatives, WGN News, and I try to brainstorm. No idea is stupid at all, and it does work. And in fact, the channel owner of, believe his name is Adam, on Freedom Free for All, sent me an article that all of a sudden now Microsoft is getting banged for a FORA or something like that. Basically, they're being charged with bribery. Okay, now do we really want because Microsoft and Amazon are in the running for this Department of Defense Pentagon contract. Do we really want Microsoft to handle our national security issues? I say fuck no, and excuse my French, but you got to be insane to be okay with that. So it's kind of, I wonder, there's a lot of people working behind the scenes that are doing activism that don't think it's a stupid idea to call your representatives, that don't think it's a stupid idea to contact the DOD. I mean, if we do that, even if there's just a couple hundred people, they'll realize, hey, they're watching what we're doing. Maybe we shouldn't do this. And that's enough just to make them back off. And they have backed off in the recent past with public opinion, as long as people are involved. And so I don't know. I don't think that this is all by coincidence that all this stuff is coming out.
Awesome. Great points. Yeah. Thank you so much for contributing that. I've put a link to Erica's channel in the chat, so please give her a sub. She streams quite a bit. It's a great place to meet other people from the community, and we'll be looking forward to what she'll be presenting for us in the coming weeks. Did you have any final words before we go on to our next subject, where we'll be discussing OBS software given the ending of the YouTube Hangouts interface?
I just want to say thank you for having me on, and I really have enjoyed my time getting to know all of you, and thank you for sharing my link. And I'm pretty good at using OBS, so if you need if you need help, let me know. You can still use Hangouts, by the way. It just won't be automatic from YouTube. So let me know if you need help.
Thanks so much. Awesome. We'll talk to you real soon. We'll be sending the link out to the next person. I guess Gandalf might want to come on and talk about his week in review. So in the meantime, we'll go over OBS. I have been sort of familiarizing myself with it. I've had a bit of a trouble to get the audio because I'm working off of a Mac computer. And basically, I have to use 2 computers to get it to work. Otherwise, the audio is not registering for some reason. So I'm probably not the best person to talk to about OBS.
I can help you with that because I have a Mac and I figured it out, just so you know.
Awesome. Thanks so much. I'll be in touch for that. And what about you, Doovid? What are you going to be doing to deal with this Hangouts interface going away?
I'm not sure. I figure I'll download OBS and I'll you'll either use Zoom or Skype or maybe just Hangouts or maybe all of the above, depending on what people use. Like I noticed when I was on JF, he dropped himself from the call. So when I did the consciousness stream, and then he said he's going to continue on the show by himself, he just left the Hangouts call himself and went on. So whatever he was doing, he was feeding my Hangout call with him into the stream, and then so he didn't drop me from the call. He dropped himself, and he's probably quite good with it. So I guess I'm going to try to see what other streamers are doing. I don't have any streams set up for next week, so I didn't spend a bunch of time trying to figure it out. Although I'm not too worried. I'm relatively handy. I think besides the sound issue, I think Luke has been going with Zoom Although I'm not sure if anyone who's been on Luke's show knows if Luke, if he's sending the link in Zoom. I think when you were on Halsey, do you have Zoom also? Was that how you were on Halsey?
Yeah, I signed up for it. It's not very hard to sign up for if you're just going on someone else's show. And I didn't have to pay for it. But from what I've understood from Cade, who also uses Zoom, you do have to pay some minor fee. And I'm sure most people won't want to do that. So I do think OBS is the best solution. Now, basically, my issue with OBS is I have a bit of a noisy home. Like, I just have basically the kitchen and the living room is one room. So I'm sitting here and we have a fireplace that my husband has to tend to. So I like to be able to mute myself, especially when there's a lot of people on the show. And I couldn't figure out a way to mute myself and not mute the audio for the actual show. So the way that I got around that was to share the Hangout link to myself and then join the Hangout via another computer. And then I could mute it via that. And that's basically my workaround. There's probably some way to get it so that I can still mute and just be on one computer, but it's going to require me to probably download an additional piece of audio software. And just to get the OBS working in the first place, I had to download something called, I think it's audio. Yeah, I don't actually remember what it is, but it's, let's just have a look if I can find it here. It is called I Show You Audio Capture, and that's for Mac, and that's going to ensure that the audio is being routed correctly. So just sort of in general, what you're doing is you're having a Google Hangout and you're using OBS to screen capture that Hangout. So what screen capture means is that OBS basically takes all the information that's displayed on the Hangouts, the audio and the video information, and then broadcasts that directly to your YouTube channel. So you have to put your YouTube streaming key into your OBS, and that will allow you to get the very basics going. And like I said, I was able to do that on just one computer, but there was the audio issue where I really want to be able to mute myself. So my workaround for the time being is to mute myself on the computer that I'm streaming from, and then send myself the link on my other computer, join the Hangout that way, and mute myself that way. And that's basically where I'm at now. So there might be a way around that, maybe not. I'd also like to get a background. So right now what I would be doing is just displaying, it would look just like what we have right now, just us talking, going between our icons, or in Doovid's case, the video feed. Otherwise, you can screen capture various things. You can feed audio directly into OBS from YouTube without it coming through on your own computer. So it does have a bit more usability, because right now when I share audio from YouTube, it's being compressed and it's not coming through in the same quality. Whereas if I did it through OBS, it would come directly through the audio feed from the internet. And so that's something we can talk about, maybe do a stream either on your channel or mine, Doovid, to actually troubleshoot that. But it might be a little different between a Mac and a PC, because I know that PCs, having worked in the industry of video analysis for quite some time, PCs do have an issue with what they call the ASIO. I'm not sure exactly what it is, but it's the thing that controls the audio. There are issues with that if you're working with a PC versus a Mac. The Mac is much more integrated, much faster system because it's running on Unix, I believe. So this will be for Macs only, at least if I'm doing it, because I have no clue what a PC looks like. I gave up PCs a long time ago. I much prefer Macs. Find them a lot more user-friendly and better for video processing in general. So that's basically my spiel. I'm probably not the best person. Erica has got a much better display than I do. Another gentleman, Plume Serpent, he's been running a channel for a while through OBS, and he's got that working great and has also offered to help me out. So luckily, there are some wonderful people in this community that are more than willing to share their knowledge. So really appreciate that. Over to you, Doovid.
Yeah, I mean, generally, I don't have that many guests. Like, I do a lot of, maybe if I have the in studio with Deshaun, I think I might be able to just use the new Creator Studio and the go live function that just uses the camera from the computer, because I won't need to use Hangouts or invite anybody on. And like my Ask the Rabbis or public study sessions where I'm not inviting anybody else on, just interacting with the chat. I haven't seen if you could do a screen share with it. I looked and I couldn't figure out how to do a screen share. But if they still allow a screen share, I'll be able to do the majority of my streams without any special software. If I assume I'll be able to download it, figure it out, and or find someone friendly to help walk through it. So I haven't looked into it, but it's an important topic to cover. And so next week in review, when it's ended, and the regular streamers, if they can't figure it out, will probably be big thing about what they're going to do about it. I would even conceivably spend money if Zoom or something like that, or maybe some like JF, who is a professional streamer and has spent significant amount of money. He might be able to like multi-platform with all the different things. Like Adam Green uses Skype, and I mean, he probably has an OBS that he uses with Skype. And so I assume a professional streamer like JF, he could integrate with any, Zoom, Skype, Hangouts, however he does it. And I don't know if he's using OBS, like the free software. He has the expensive program. And if the streaming is working out well,
Zoom, Doooovid, I think.
Yeah, I would even consider, purchasing different equipment or a home computer. As of now, like I don't want to spend a bunch of money on it if I don't need to. So, I haven't quite got my 1,000 subscribers. I'm close. I'm within like 40. See if I have a super chat audience. If people like my content and are going to throw money my way, that might make it more likely that I'll use that money to increase my streaming. So, we could table that to next week, but it's important, and I'm glad you have it basically figured out. So it looks like, because you have a lot more guests on your streams than I do, so you'll be able to continue that immediately. And I might just wait because I don't have any streams immediately planned where I'm going to, have a guest on my channel that it's necessary.
Yeah, I've noticed just having so much experience with people is that the more complicated the process of joining a stream is, the less likely people are going to join it. The Hangouts is basically already built into Google, so it's very easy to get a Hangouts account, whereas people might be more reticent to sign up for something like Zoom. So I'm not going to go the Zoom route unless I absolutely have to. I think I can work it out with OBS and Hangouts. OBS is a free program. It's just fine in my view, considering I've used a lot of video editing and video software that is way harder. It seems pretty user friendly, especially if all you're looking to do is emulate the stream format that we're using right now, which is an interface between Hangouts and YouTube. So you can tell that that's what I'm using, because when my face shows up on the screen there's no moving circle around my head. And if you're streaming through OBS, you'll be screen capturing the Hangout directly, so you will see that. So if you look at people's streams, if you see that movement around their icon, that means they're screen capturing directly from Hangouts. Whereas what we're doing here, which will no longer be available at the end of the month, is an interface which gets rid of that movement in the I'm sure you can see it, Doovid, and I'm sure people know what I'm talking about, but you're not going to be able to see any, like that little gray circle moving around coinciding with my my audio levels. So that's the difference basically between screen capturing Hangouts versus via OBS versus the interface, which, as we've said, is going away.
Yeah, and some people like JF has programming experience. I have a little bit of programming experience. It could be people like Claire. Maybe she's not going to be able to figure it out. Like even Jay this week. So, Claire was able to hop on Jay's channel when her channel went down, to hop on Jay's channel, or even John Vance's channel. So those people who might be able to still join your calls, and it might also help increase the behavior. So there's a reason why Google's doing it, to limit their liability, and they don't mind making it more difficult for this. That they figure that there's a lot of liability to just letting anybody stream and having it so easy. So I'm sure they know exactly what they're doing or have it thought out where they have determined that there's too much liability to just have it so easy to hop on and make a stream, and making it more difficult for people to do it might increase better behavior. And so that could be a good thing.
Sure, filter out the dregs. And we may be doing all this for nothing, because it's possible that YouTube will get so much blowback from its consumer base that they'll reinterface whatever updated version of Hangouts to do essentially the same thing. So we'll see how we'll just play that by ear, see how it goes. Hopefully it
That's also why I haven't done it, because I had a feeling that might also be the case. So I was like, I'm gonna download OBS and go through all this hassle, when it's possible Google's just gonna relinquish to public pressure and allow us to keep on doing it the way we're doing it.
You never know. It seemed kind of out of the blue. Someone in the chat, Rufus, is saying Google's doing it because they're insolvent. There's no money in it. They're downsizing. That may be possible. So we'll just have to stay tuned and see where things go. And Rufus Cat, if you want to come on and discuss your week in review, this show is basically, we have people come on for about 10, 15 minutes, talk about where they're at. I've got your email, buddy, so I'll send you the link if you want to pop in. Gandalf as well. I'm not sure if you want to come on, but we'll send those links out. We'd like to have one person on at a time, sort of interview them the way we did with Erica, and move the show along that way. And if people want to have longer conversations, I know you've sent me an email, Rufus. We'll be very happy to host that, or I'll go on your show and we'll start the discussion there. So over to you, Doovid, while I share those links.
Okay, yeah, I think there's a lot of talk about what we're going to be doing moving forward, and hosting debates is probably the direction that me and you, in terms of teamwork, because we could still collaborate because we still have the same interests. Like I said, I'm going to be doing an Ask the Rabbi 10, 11, and 12 probably on, and it's going to include one on reincarnation, about the historic views of the various sages and biblical passage on the Hebrew view towards reincarnation, and another about the Hebrew conception of the soul. And so I assume me and you will keep on collaborating, trying to move forward these ideas. We were talking before the show started about the Science of Consciousness conference in Switzerland, which is kind of concerning that it hasn't been uploaded onto YouTube. I'm constantly searching, to see when they're going to upload it, and it hasn't been. So that'd be very disappointing. I think for years they've uploaded and made it free and available. It could be they just take a few months. It's possible, because I only started studying this stuff in the last year, so it's possible that it always takes a few months till they upload it, or it's possible that there's some reason in Switzerland they weren't able to video it and upload it for everyone's availability. That would be very disappointing. I bought a book by Hamerov and Penrose that has a collection of scientific papers on the issue, actually two of them, one by Penrose and Deepak Chopra, and one by Hamerov and Penrose, and also Chopra and a whole bunch of other people. And it has tens of papers, so of the various experts on the topic. So certainly, hopefully, our collaboration will continue just based on our own independent research, and at the same time, just because me and you both like ideas and debate, that we'll be able to find people that are interested in forwarding these debates. Like me and you will hopefully eventually have this debate on the scientific proof of God. I think the debate between Zachary Miller and Will DePower, it wasn't quite up to the standard that I'm hoping the debate between me and you will be. The debate between you and Claire, that also at least on Claire's part, wasn't up to the standard. And now that we kind of have these conceptions of these, they were decent debates, but I think we could be hosting much better debates. And I assume me and you will be continue to cooperate on that, and hopefully we could really be like the future of internet debates. I think Worski had kind of had a monopoly on it, probably as like a shock jock. He just had a huge channel, so that when he went into the debates, he just had a huge viewership, and he had the super chats, and people were making money off of it, that all these people were willing to go through them. And now there's kind of been a decentralization where there's hundreds and hundreds of channels that are doing these various debates. And so if we just keep on upping the quality of our content. I think these circles like Plum Serpent and a whole bunch of other people, Zed Des here's in the chat. She's familiar with multiple other channels that are doing similar things like JF and other channels that she's mentioned to me that we might be able to branch out and continue these conversations and even start hosting them. So I'm looking forward to that. Like, I don't think it's going to happen this week because I have stuff happening here in Detroit with the Democratic debates. I'm going to be on the scene, and I might do shows related just to the news at the time. But maybe the following week we'll be able to, even move into either our debate on the logic of God or a book review of the eternal truth. And your audience is certainly growing. So, people, once they start seeing what a good debate looks like, I think we're going to find a lot of people stepping up to the plate.
Yeah, I totally love that debate that I did, and I don't want to hog all the attention. I would rather facilitate debates between other people who are looking to train themselves to get up to a bit of a higher standard. So I'm really pleased to see that channels like Plume Serpent have been hosting debates. So recently there was one on communism versus libertarianism, and I shared the link to that. So I thought that was a positive step in the right direction. Also, there may be a debate between Halsey and Jay Walker coming up. I haven't finalized that, but if it happens, I'll be moderating.
On feminism, Halsey's going to take the anti-feminism and Jay the pro-feminism.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. So there's been a bit of drama with Jay, so I'm not 100% sure if that's good to go, but hopefully it is. Welcome to the show, Rufus Cat. It was great to meet you, buddy. Thank you so much for your contributions to the culture. Thank you for coming on the stream yesterday. Apologies that I had to take it down, but unfortunately, I'm just concerned about the health of the channel, and I've been working on this for too long to lose it. So hopefully you can come back another time and we can actually keep that stream up. I don't think it was you that derailed the conversation, so it's nothing bad on you. I took it down because I was mostly just worried about it getting reported. So Rufus Cat, how are you doing, buddy? What's new with you, and what are your plans going forward?
I don't think you can hear me. You can't hear me, can you?
I can definitely hear you. You're coming through 100%.
Oh, okay. Because, there it is. All right. I'm sorry. Because I was like tapping my microphone to see if I had the little bar, the little audio bar to let me know that my audio was coming through. So sorry about that. All right. So you can hear me. Cool.
Yeah, I'm not sure we've met, or maybe there's a lot of people watching this that aren't familiar. If you want to give a brief introduction to yourself also.
Well, my channel is Rufus Cat, and it's actually Rufus Cat 2. I went through a termination. Basically, what I have done over the last couple of years is I've hosted a podcast or hangout, and it's called Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come. It's basically it's an interview series where I have spent the 3 hours every Friday interviewing a lot of YouTubers. I've had the pleasant opportunity to speak to some world-class, world-renowned researchers and authors, some big names, and I've gotten to know and meet some really great people. And that was my focus for a long time. So like I said, the name of the show is Conspiracy or Not, Here We Come. So basically, conspiracy or not, it's a play on words, as you can imagine. We don't always talk about conspiracy, but we're fairly conspiratorial minded. We're very well aware of various conspiracies and whatnot. And so we talk about a lot of corruption, government corruption, corporate corruption, and whatnot, and those sorts of things.
Can you define what you mean by conspiracy quickly?
Well, a conspiracy is by definition two or more people that are working together for nefarious ends. Now, we had this conversation last night where I basically had to sort of clarify. Somebody else tried to define conspiracy, and they left out the nefarious part, because you could, from one perspective, you could say that the three of us right now are conspiring to have a conversation. We're all working together for whatever end that it turns out to be. But ultimately, typically, the idea of a conspiracy is really there's something nefarious behind it.
I see you have Michael Cremo on. I actually drove him. He came to Metro Detroit already close to 5 years ago. I'm affiliated with the Hare Krishnas, and he's a Hare Krishna, but he did a multi-speaking tour at multiple different universities, and I signed up to be his driver. So I had spoke to him for like 10 hours because I spent the whole day
Wow.
with him, driving him around to different events. And I have all of his books, and so in that, like, I like conspiracy too, because I think okay, I'm good at following rules, but it doesn't mean that I don't think there's a conspiracy behind the making of the rules. So even though I haven't had problems with YouTube because I'm good at following the rules, it doesn't mean that I don't agree that there's a conspiracy that might have or almost definitely has nefarious purposes making these, and like Federal Reserve or even, like, to me, evolution. I agree with Michael Cremo on that. Like, I'm not a fan of evolution, or even possible things like he's talking about. Me and Jennifer have talked about the ideas that he's mentioned in the past, like, has man been around for millions or hundreds of millions of years, and has the scientific community conspired with nefarious purposes to hide the evidence that shows that, according to the current science of carbon dating and archaeology, that there's actually significant evidence that mankind has been around for tens of millions of years, or such things, where you add in that nefarious purpose, that there's a reason why people are purposely misleading the masses.
Well, that's awesome that you were able to hang out with Michael Cremo for 10 straight hours. I can only imagine what that was like. I've had the pleasure to have him on my show twice, and I've had 2 3-hour conversations with him. I've read 2 of his books, and I've had the pleasure of interviewing Dr. Joseph Farrell. Professor James Fetzer was on 3 times. I've had Ole Demigard on 3 or 4 times. Thomas Sheridan, I had the pleasure of speaking with Thomas Sheridan for a couple of hours. And so, I mean, I've had the chance to speak to a couple of well-known people, and interviewed dozens and upon dozens of sometimes well-known YouTubers, sometimes large channels. So that's pretty much what I'm interested in, is just getting to know people and picking their brains, because if you know something that I don't, then I'd like to know it.
Yeah, the
Are
first
you
time
more scientific?
The first time I met Rufus was actually on Plume Surface Channel, where he was debating Josh there about, I think it was atheism versus, I'm not sure exactly. I don't think he said theism, or I'm not sure how he worded it exactly, but I liked the way Rufus was asking very directed questions and getting to the epistemological root of Josh's beliefs. So that's when I first took an interest in him. He seemed like a very friendly gentleman with a lot of knowledge, and I'm very happy that we've had a chance to meet. So I think, Doovid, you were asking whether he has a background in science. Sorry to cut you off there.
Well, yeah, I mean, conspiracy is a big thing. So we have a lot, like, World War II conspiracies, even like, Jennifer's channel, people were insisting on, like, God forbid, like debating gas chambers or something, versus like Michael Cremo, where you're talking scientific conspiracies and intellectual knowledge-based conspiracies, where there's reasons why people are hiding intellectual scientific truths from people, versus possibly JQ type conspiracies, or political conspiracies, or financial banking conspiracies. So do you have an area of specialty? Are all conspiracies interesting to you, or you're more focused on intellectual scientific conspiracies?
The area that I would say that I'm probably most specialized in would be logistics. And that, I think that's because of the nature of who I am and the life path that I have chosen. I am actually currently, for employment, I'm a remodeling contractor. So every single thing that I do involves logistics. How do I get this done? And every time I turn around, every single day, hundreds of times per day, I have a new task, a new challenge that has to be overcome. And the best, quickest, fastest, easiest, cheapest, most proficient, most solid, flat, plumb, and square and level way to get it done is the way that I tend to, that's just sort of the way my brain thinks. I think very strongly in terms of logistics. How do things actually happen from start to finish, and all the nuances and inner workings? That's kind of just how my brain works. As I grew up, I did extremely well in school. I was a straight A student all the way through my entire scholastic career. I did great in science. That was one of my favorite subjects. I took mathematics all the way up to trigonometry. I was almost to the point where I thought I was going to be an electrical engineer, and so I was taking many years of electrical engineering training. So there was a fair amount of math involved in that. I did well in math. I loved science, and now I work with my hands. I work with tools. I work with multiple types of materials. And so, I mean, I've literally had my hands on and fixed, welded, repaired, installed, removed, ground, polished virtually every sort of material that you could think of, with very, very few exceptions, except for the very, very high grade, like exotic materials. I haven't really dealt with particular, exotic materials like excuse me, like radioactive materials. I'm not Thunderfoot, okay? I'm not a academically trained scientist, okay? But I've got my hands in a lot of pies.
Yeah, me and Jennifer both have science backgrounds. I have a background in physics and work in civil engineering. And I talk about, like, on minor conspiracy levels, just failures of management and corruption at low level in organizations. A company, usually for profit, like, why do companies operate in an inefficient way? Why would management purposely do things to hold the company back, which is usually related to corruption and holding on to power? So, if you just talk like logistics, in terms of procedures or logistics, in the way a lot of times it's used, like international shipping. I run an eBay business, and but I've worked with a lot of people and seen a lot of management and done accounting and bookkeeping, and familiar with organizations where people, board of directors, and people purposely, if not illegally, will legally poorly run companies because they are conspiring for their own benefit, either to give themselves a bigger salary or to make their own job easier, and will purposely quash good ideas that might eat out of their paycheck or would increase the efficiency. And that could even be on the thing for, like, streaming, like conspiring to rig debates, conspiring to make one person look better than they should in reality, say, like, by having a conversation on a different channel and saying, like, let's just make believe or pretend that something is reality when they know it's not reality, because they perceive they're going to have a material benefit from doing that.
Absolutely. Everybody knows it's easy to fool people. We've all lied to somebody at some point, and we all understand how easy it is to get away with little lies and sometimes big lies.
We talked at the
So-
beginning of the stream about conversations in good faith, and that implies the information asymmetry, and certainly in computers and in business, the information asymmetry is usually always there. And lying and fooling people, like at financial type stuff, saying, like, well, they don't know how much money we're making, I'm the one who's doing the books, or something like that, and if I just don't tell them, no one's going to know. And then there might be a handful of people that have the information, and they could just conspire to not share the information or hide certain of the information, only pass on partial information to the rest of the people. And if they could get away with that, they could their conspiracy would work, and they will have short-term gain.
Sure. And
hence the motive why it's almost a universal thing at tiny levels to a partnership. If it's just me and Jennifer and our streaming, or anything where there's some material benefit that could come out of conspiring and not sharing the information we have and deceiving people in order to increase our own personal benefit.
Sure. And one of the easiest ways to pull the wool over somebody's eyes and to get away with a lie, whether it be big or small, one of the easiest ways to do that is to quickly brush it off and then distract. So when you give somebody else to think, when you give someone something else to think about, or if you're an employer, or if you have any position of power, if you're a parent or whatever, if you have any position of power, then it's very easy to give somebody something else to do, a task, and which is, again, a distraction, or to show them something like a magician's trick. Look at the left hand, not the right hand. A quick distraction of any kind, literally any distraction will do. And last night we were talking to this character, Con Ops, and it came to our attention that, well, some name calling was thrown about, shill this, gatekeeper that. And I brought up the point that you'll never actually know who is actually on the payroll, if they are a paid shill or whatnot. My main focus was, again, because my brain thinks about logistics all the time, my main focus was whether they're on the payroll or not. The thing to focus on is basically know them by their deeds. So what is the effect? What is the bottom line effect? How is their message being perceived? How is what they're saying affecting the people that are listening? So, and the bottom line,
that's very intelligent. Sorry, go ahead. I thought you were done.
And the one other aspect was when Gandalf, Conops, he responded that he was part of a intelligence agency, and I thought that was a sarcastic remark. Gandalf sort of took it and ran with it as though it was a serious response and said, "Ha, we got you." And he said, "Well, if I hired you, I'd fire you because you suck." And I piped up and I said, "Actually, I would give him a raise because what he's doing is actually distracting us all. He's sucking up our time." Okay. And here's I'll give you, I'll quote you a quick quote, and I'll give it back to you, Jen. And this is a quote that stuck with me forever. And I don't know if it's a true quote, but it's attributed to Einstein. He was asked one day, "Why do you have a closet full of the same suit?" Basically, someone looked in his closet, I don't know, interview or whatever, and his closet had 7 suits. They were all identical. And it said, "Why do you have the same suit? Why do you always wear the same clothes?" And his reply was, and this has always stuck with me, he said, "I don't want to spend 1 second of my day thinking about what I'm going to wear." And I translate that, I took that to mean that my brain power is so valuable that if I spend time thinking about what I'm going to wear, then that takes away from the other more important things that I need to think about.
The whole point of that conversation yesterday, which I originally wanted it to be just me sort of monologuing about logic and how to make logical inferences using good axioms, I thought I'd have him on because just in the spirit of like resolving conflicts. And what I wanted to discuss with him wasn't conspiracy theories per se. It was, why do people believe in conspiracy theories? So that we started with the flat earth, and I showed him some pictures that are used to substantiate that position. And he just didn't seem to be able to converse on that level. Like, I'm all about the meta-analysis, right? It's not about the conspiracy theory itself, because I haven't done enough research to have an informed opinion. It's about, why do people believe in things that appear to be false? And I thought flat earth was a good example because there's a whole lot of shilling for flat earth going on these days. I'm sure a lot of people have noticed that. And it does appear to be an idea with no evidentiary basis. But historically, people have believed in flat earth. Advanced civilizations have believed in a flat earth type of model. So I'm curious why. And so we showed that image. Sorry, go ahead.
I think that I can give you a pretty clear answer to that question. At first, it's a couple of layers that you have to understand. And I mentioned last night about the John Taylor Gatto video that I have, where he describes the 6 purposes of schooling as laid down by Alexander Ingalls, who was Harvard named honor lecturer. Purpose number 1 for the schooling that we currently have in this Western society, purpose number 1 is automatic response to authority. It's not about education. So if you look around and you understand that most people, and most of us have gone through this Prussian system of schooling that was brought here in the 1850s. So most of us understand that school has failed, education has failed. Most people grow up with little to no science education. So now we live in a world where information is flowing freely, and we have people online who will listen to people like Mark Sargent, Eric Dubay, and whatnot. And they will get information from basically an authority figure, someone who has studied it more than they. Okay, it sort of reminds me of the Milgram experiment, where all it takes is a guy in a lab coat to get someone to literally electroshock another participant. So with very, very, very little authority, all it takes, because people have been trained to respond to authority, all it takes is someone who is perceived to know more than you to tell you how things are, and you automatically believe it. And if you don't have the education, if you don't have the science background to think for yourself, then you'll just believe it. And then you become a shill unknowingly, unpaid, you're not on the payroll, but then you start thinking and believing this idea of, in flat earth in particular, and then now you're making videos and you're putting out information and other people see you as an authority. It's like in the old days when we used to have cassette tapes and you copied someone else's cassette tape onto your cassette tape, and then it got old and you copied it onto another one and you copied it, and eventually the audio gets degraded. So it's the information continues to get degraded. And because people have such poor education, they don't have the background to understand the science that's being presented, and they will believe the authority figure, what is perceived to be an authority figure.
Well, me and Jennifer work with because we both have a common interest in the conscious mind, and we work for this concept of dissonance. So if you just accept that ignorance is the natural condition, that everybody is born into a state of ignorance, and only through effort, usually self-willed effort, could someone attempt to get out of the state of ignorance. But there's this dissonance where you have our own perception of how the world works versus the reality, the greater reality of how the world actually works, and people get triggered and they come into fight or flight or whatever, however you understand consciousness, when there's this dissonance between our understanding of the world and how the world actually is. And that's, relatively could explain all of these processes like conspiracy and understanding, where people have to embrace the dissonance and recognize, I don't really understand the world. And it's scary when the living in a state of dissonance where we recognize that our postulates for how the world works are largely inaccurate. And so I don't know if you have thoughts on consciousness, the hard problem of consciousness, quantum mind, or just like basic psychology of cognitive dissonance to apply what you're saying to a psychological level. Of course, people are born into ignorance. Of course, they don't understand the world. It takes someone decades and decades, a lifetime, to just understand a few minor processes of how the world might operate, and to work to the best of our human ability to operate with the givens of empiricism or consciousness or the problems of dissonance.
I have plenty of thoughts on that subject. First of all, dissonance, cognitive dissonance, is when people are holding two conflicting ideas in their head at the same time, simultaneously. It's what Orwell called double speak or double thought.
I don't mean to get into because we've been having these debates, and we have a lot of definitional type things where a lot of times we use definitions different than other people.
Sure.
So we've been working with the dissonance concept of the dissonance is when there's a difference between the way we see the world and what our sense perception is telling us,
Okay.
which is related to a classical,
plays
maybe clinical definition, but it's saying that if ignorance is the natural condition and what in our brain is telling us we should see doesn't match with what we see, and so reality dissonance is actually the constant condition of a person, but sometimes is more conscious or more profound.
Okay, I'm glad you brought that up, because it actually plays into the explanation of what I was saying a minute ago about why people believe in various conspiracies, particularly false conspiracies like Flat Earth. Because people today, with the free flow of information, have the ability to answer virtually any question at the drop of a hat without even asking anybody. The answer is in their pocket. So, and like you said, that our perception of the world is different from how the world actually works, because we're presented, as we grow up and as we live our lives, we're presented that the world works a certain way. And as you grow older and you start asking a little bit deeper questions, and maybe you get online and you start rubbing elbows with people like us who are trying to present a little bit more accurate information, then people start to see, wait a minute, I've been lied to. What else have I been lied to about? And then goes back to the lack of education. So they start to realize that they've been lied to. They start to realize the world doesn't work the way that they initially perceived it, the way they were taught. And then they start investigating, and then they find these gurus like Mark Sargent and Eric Dubay and Jeranism and others who who have a strong confidence in their voice, and they have lots of videos and big followings, and so they look like authority figures. So number one, we've been trained to respond to authority. Number two, we don't have the science background in general, most people. And then number three, people start waking up and realizing they've been lied to from every corner of their lives, because the world doesn't work the way they think it works. And so then they go back to point number one, where it's an authority figure. Somebody's telling you, well, you've been lied to about this, and this, and here I am telling you how it really is. And because they don't have the science education or any kind of real education or cognitive thought process, the ability to think for themselves, they literally just default to the authority figure, even if it's a perceived authority figure, and that's what they believe.
Well, because it's easier to live the lie than face the dissonance of the truth. Because at least if they continue on with their misperception of reality, they might not be able. And it also goes somewhat to free will, because a lot of people on this channel, as opposed to me, who have a strong belief in free will, would say that there's a substantial amount of free will. But what amount of free will does a person have to actually get to the truth, or to choose actively that I'm not going to live the lie that I was brought up or told, and I'm going to use out of my own free will to suffer the pain of the dissonance in order to learn the truth. And it also kind of comes into rich dad, poor dad, where you have to question, okay, if everyone, no matter how they take low or high birth, suffers the same natural condition of ignorance, that why would it be, or how do you deal with the fact that Jennifer and me both believe in reincarnation or spiritual systems, the rich dad poor dad dilemma of the information asymmetry that is faced by the level of birth a person takes.
Well, that's interesting, again, that you said what you just said, because I happen to be a determinist. I actually don't believe in free will. I take the position that your thoughts are not your own, and that quite literally, you really don't have as much control over your thoughts, your will, your desire that you think that you have. I think free will is, in fact, an illusion. And if I was to adopt the Tom Jump position, I'm not sure if you're familiar with this YouTuber by the name of Tom Jump. You can find him as T Jump.
It's going to be another definitional type thing where what do we mean by free will? But if you mean by free will, where I'm saying free will is just the ability of the person to accept the dissonance over the comfortability of living. And so everybody has the free will to say, okay, this is how, however I took birth, or the world that I was brought into explained to me how these processes worked in a logistics manner. And then a person has the free will to say, I reject the lies that I was told, and I'm going to live with the dissonance of not really knowing how the world works and try to figure it out on my own.
I think that is an illusion. I hold a completely different position. I am a determinist, and for myself, I can only speak for myself on this subject. I won't try to explain how other people's thought processes work. But when it comes to, like, for instance, conspiracy, which is something that I'm fairly interested in, because it sort of helps you understand the nuances of what you thought the way the world works actually doesn't work that way, and you start to learn and realize that the nuances of how maybe it really does work, and whether you get to
the service you're trying to provide.
I'm sorry?
Is that not in essence the service that you and your channel are trying to provide?
Yes. In essence, that is the service I'm trying to provide.
Even without a belief in free will. I mean, saying like, well, if there's no free will, how is it that you're providing a service? We don't have to get caught up in,
because I'm determined
to a free will
because
debate.
I think that I'm predetermined to do so.
But what about the people that you're saying, the people that choose to accept your service and to suffer the condition of dissonance with the information that you're giving them, as opposed to the comfortability of retaining the lies that they've been told, that they're predetermined to want to accept the state of dissonance that you provide them?
Yes.
As opposed to a free decision that someone comes across you or your channel, and they have a free will decision of, do they enter dissonance with the information you're providing them, or do they continue on in the path of being comfortably ignorant?
Well, again, this is a very nuanced and sometimes uncomfortable type of conversation because most people don't like the idea that their thoughts are not their own, and that every single thought that you have is one of two things. It's either random or it's prompted by an outside influence.
Okay, when we could table this, but I'm saying there is some sort of decision process, whether a person has a free choice when they come across
Not necessarily.
you and decide. I mean, so we don't have to play a word game or get too deeply into your philosophy, but there is some, if it's predetermined or whether a person has an active choice and whether they determine that the information you're providing is useful and, so to say, take the red pill, or whether they take the blue pill and decide the information you're offering is not useful, and whether that's predetermined or a free choice that the person made. I just thought it was interesting to tie that in what your philosophy was on it, but it's maybe too much to sidetrack the conversation.
It's probably too much for this particular conversation. You and I could probably go for hours on this topic, and I'd be happy to do that at any time. But like I said, I am a determinist. I don't believe. I firmly, and I've looked at this pretty closely, as closely as I could, and some of the smartest people I've ever heard speak are all determinists. So I have adopted this idea because to me it seems the most rational, the most logical. It seems to make the most sense. And even though it's difficult pill to swallow, I do think that free will, the idea of free will, that you are a free agent to make your own decisions and to control your own thoughts, I think that's really largely illusional, if not entirely.
Okay, but that doesn't play into what you're streaming and what you're trying to accomplish, whether the people that come on to appreciate your service are determined or actively making a choice in a manner that doesn't change the fact that you're going to keep on doing what you're doing.
No,
but it might change the fact how you go about doing it in the term of how you provide your content. If you look at the people who come across you as making some sort of intelligent decision whether to look at your content or not, or if it's some sort of deterministic process that people who desire your content will come onto it, and people who don't predeterminedly desire your content will not come onto it.
Pretty much. That's pretty much how the universe is going to play out, whether I like it or not, whether they like it or not. There's a quote from Einstein again. I think he said that reality is an illusion, albeit a persistent one. I would apply that to the idea of free will. Free will is an illusion, albeit a persistent one.
So what do you have coming up? What have you done recently? What type of conversations or debates have you hosted recently, and what do you have in the near future? And from the Jennifer Church of Entropy circuits, what do you think? Whether predetermined or through free will decisions, could this springboard into new interesting venues of thought?
Well, it's interesting that you brought that up again as well, because I am gearing my channel towards more debate style format. It was previously an interview series where we literally just invited anybody I could get my hands on, and literally just probed as deeply as I could with as many questions as I could come up with. But Josh, like Jen mentioned, is actually going towards more of a debate style. This is also what I am gearing up to do. I think it's interesting because I think a lot of people online are starting to get more and more into the debate style format of listening and engaging. I think there's a lot more information to be gained. I myself have been following debates very, very, very heavily for the last 1.5 to 2 years in my spare time. And I can honestly say I learn more by listening to two people argue over any particular topic, whether it be philosophy or religion or various scientific aspects or physics aspects. I learn a lot more by listening to people lay out their arguments and lay out their sources and lay out their science and lay out their history of their sources. To me, that is more informative than virtually anything that I've been engaged in previously, and I see a lot more people getting involved in it. I'm seeing a lot more channels pop up that are debate driven, and I'm seeing now Josh is also going that direction, and I myself am also going in that direction.
Well, who is Josh? I'm just confused here.
the Plume Serpent channel.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
So what I have coming up, I don't actually have anything on the schedule, except I do have, I think Josh and I are going to have another theological debate in the very near future. We got very, very sidetracked when him and I spoke, although it was an interesting conversation. And then Jen came in later on, and what's the other guy? Caffey, he came in. We had an interesting conversation. That was fine. It was very sidetracked, and there are some things that I've discovered about Josh's ideology that I really want to drill down on a little bit harder. So him and I will be rehashing or basically redoing that discussion. So that's kind of what I have in the plans, in the works. And the most recent thing that I've done was show number 100 for my show, Conwick Show. And let me see, well, the topic of that was counterculture.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Anything
So I
else,
guess
Jennifer?
we'll say goodbye to Rufus Cat for now, and we'll have our next guest on. We're trying to rotate through the people within 10,
Cool.
15 minutes. So I saw in the
We're
chat.
trying to facilitate, micro streamers and having these debates and conversations. That's the whole purpose of the Week in Review is to facilitate a week of good streams.
Cool. Nice to meet you, Doovid.
You too.
Awesome. And if we do a post stream, we'll send you the link for sure if you're interested in coming on. And we're not sure how long Week in Review is going to go for, but we'll be in touch and we'll have our conversation about theism, deism, what have you, atheism real soon. Looking forward to that. Thanks so much for your email, Rufus.
Thanks, Jen. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye. All right, that was awesome. Yeah, he seems like a cool guy. He's got a good radio voice, and he's obviously been doing this for a while, and he can obviously keep it together on a stream without derailing or Fed posting or any of that stuff that we've worked so hard to get past. And
He got a big channel. He's I don't know, professional, but like JF or something, and playing professional. He's making a living off of it. But obviously he's a together streamer.
Hello? Can you hear me?
Welcome to the chat, Gandalf. We can hear you just fine. Thank you so much for participating in the conversation that we had yesterday. I apologize again for having to take the stream down. Same to you, Will to Power. You did make some great contributions, both of you. I am very concerned, especially because Jay said he wanted to report the channel, as so many people are opposed to me and us and what we represent. So just going forward, if you want the stream to stay up, keep it on subject. I always like to keep it in the domain of meta-analysis because there's already a lot of analysis out there. You can look this stuff up, get an idea. I'm more interested in meta-analysis, i.e. why do people believe the things that they do? How do things manifest? Rather than, where that slightly disastrous conversation went. So Gandalf, I'll hand it over to you if you'd like to share with us how your week has been. What are your impressions and whatever else is on your mind, buddy? Go ahead.
Well, I need to get myself much more serious and scheduled. Like I need to have my own weekly stream, and Rufus is someone I should do more stuff with. Maybe Sinkowitz, maybe Will to Power. I mean, lots of people, and I just got to get myself focused. I have I'm trying to mold some of my older interests from deep in life. I was always interested in military history, always interested in the weather and natural disasters, and I'm interested in politics. So it's hurricane season, and how governments handle big disasters is actually really interesting as political pressures mount and internal fracturing of society continues. So that's probably something I'm going to do some writing about next week or two, because I needed a subject. I've just had this block for a long time, and I could probably marry that to streaming. But as per yesterday, I did blow my stack at ConOps. I'm working on my temper, but I mean, he just pushed every single button imaginable for me. Just the level of dishonesty and bad faith was just, you wouldn't even define conspire. You wouldn't even acknowledge a dictionary definition of the word. And yet he has us talking about 9/11, flat earth, the moon landings, the Holocaust, you name it. And it was just, I'm just beyond angry still. And it's been 24 hours. I mean, am I unreasonable for being that angry or what?
he seems to love talking about the Holocaust for some reason. I think maybe the Wignats have kind of rubbed off on him, and he likes to kind of go on those shows and feel intellectually superior, even though he's the butt of all their jokes, and they certainly don't respect him at all. So
He also be from Holland,
I don't know
and
what
that's his subject.
I don't know
But,
what
I mean, yeah, what
exactly if he's coming in good faith and if he's just one of these condescending pseudo intellectuals that wants to, like, I don't know. I can't relate to people like that. Go over to you, Doovid.
Yeah, I mean, whatever if he doesn't want to open himself to psychoanalysis, and there's information asymmetry where in reality we know very little about him besides for how he's appeared on these streams. But in terms of Gandalf, I would say in general, anger is almost always a negative, if not always negative. Even studies like in strength or martial arts or something like that, where anger doesn't help you in your fighting or intellectual ability. There's been multiple studies that have demonstrated that people perform weaker, and if you were a professional fighter or something like that, that where an area where you might think anger would help you in that, the evidence seems pretty conclusive that even in those conflicting situations, the calmer person performs better. And the origins of negative character, what the origin of anger is, we could discuss that. But generally, the Hebrew sages will say, like jealousy, honor seeking, and anger remove a person from the world of the 7 deadly sins in Catholicism, or Hinduism, or any different thing. Just at the Hare Krishna temple today, the person giving the class was talking about anger and asked how many people suffer with anger, and about a quarter of the people in the temple raised their hands. So I would just recommend recognizing anger as a negative trait and eradicate it. Don't give any defense to it. Just look in the mirror and say, I want to be a good person. I want to improve my character. I recognize that anger is a bad character trait, and there's different methods in order to do character improvement and eradicate these bad character traits. That's part of the purpose of the week in review.
Now, serious question though. I mean, I don't know. It's a debate whether it's a good. I hear your criticism. I think there's a lot of legitimacy to it, but like there is a part of me which is just righteously angry at the people like OV and ConOps and the people over at.
But the concept is saying that even that you believe there's such a thing as righteous anger. So that's why I say, like, I give the studies on fighting or something and saying, like, okay, like I, God forbid, would administer the death penalty if I had to, but I wouldn't be angry at the person. That just because it might be your job to administer a penalty, anger is not. There is no righteous anger. That it doesn't in any scenario. You're going to be unlikely to find a benefit or an excuse to defend your anger.
I'll ask this to Church of Entropy, and then I'd also like Doovid's response as well. But, what are the responses to, like, me getting pissed off at ConOps and Bateman and OV type people in the chats, and how is that looking? Like, I don't know if I'm the best judge of that necessarily, and I just want to kind of know what people are seeing. I mean, people seem to think I'm I guess I have this kind of funny persona, and I am humorous in a sense. And, I do like that, I guess, but maybe that's wrong. I don't know. What do you think, Church of Entropy? And then what do you think, Doovid?
I think showing emotion on stream for any purpose other than a tactical purpose, i.e. teaching people how to get mad, because people, Europeans seem to struggle a lot with passive aggression. And I think if they could just express their anger correctly or their, displeasure correctly, they wouldn't be so passive aggressive the way like people like Jade Walker are. And I think that's really toxic. So I do sometimes show emotion on stream tactically to kind of teach people how to show their, there are times where it's justified to get angry, but usually for like 99% of these things, when you're not really in control, it indicates weakness, I think. So if you're on a stream and you're upset, it's better to just get off for a while, kind of cool down. Because if you want people to really hear you out, you have to be calm. Otherwise, you're going to become a lolcow. And I think the issue and the path that sort of would be a risk for many people to go down is to get stuck in this kind of persona, right? like the
Yeah.
Gandalf posting type thing. Like if you get a following based on Gandalf posting, and then they expect that from you, and you eventually decide you don't want to do that persona anymore, it's going to be tough, because they're not going to want to follow you anymore, because they only followed you on the basis of like laughing at you because they thought your anger was funny. So this is why, like I say, don't keep in mind who your base is, and you want to build a base that follows you for the right reasons, not because you're a lol cow. So that's pretty much how I see that. But I mean, granted, there are times where it's actually quite logical to be upset. I mean, people doing things that are dishonorable, distrustful, and flat out slanderous, it is cause to get angry, but it's not generally a good idea to show emotion, especially negative emotion, on a stream.
True. So I guess, I should be careful about it, but people like Conops, OV, and Bateman, not so much Cade. But those three really that was just too much for me.
Yeah, I would stick with anger always being negative. It's a sign of dissonance, where you see that your worldview doesn't correspond with reality, in terms like your persona in Etruscan meant mask, and a lot of times, like the old Wise Tale, the like Twilight Zone episodes, that if you make funny faces at people, you'll be stuck with it, and you start wearing this mask, and then it doesn't just become a mask; it actually is who you are. And if you look at logical circumstances where you might try to defend, like God forbid someone stole from me, someone attacked me, I have a right to be angry. In reality, is not a scenario, because like I knew a lot of police chaplains, or I lived in New York City, where there were constantly crazy things happening. Like I follow, at least in Jewish circles, crime blogs and incidents, so to say, of anti-Semitism, and it's just like, someone just defaced a synagogue, I have a right to be angry. And you might say, yes, you have a right to be angry, but from a spec, no, that's dissonance. And logic, cool calculation is generally always the best way to handle situations. And if you take the full dissonance level to like the violence level, as I said, the studies have been clearly demonstrated that people perform worse when they're angry. And in conflict and anything that you compete at, the studies are conclusive that performance decreases under anger. So I think it'd be, just recommend, anger is a negative character that comes from some state of dissonance, and you should work at trying to understand that what's triggering you, and how to handle it in a better, cool, calculated situation. And that's the best way out of these circumstances, whether it's you have to block people or avoid people, or just say, I don't understand why this person's a bad actor, but I'm putting them off as a bad actor, and they bring out the worst in me. And maybe like the man who shot Liberty Valens, or type thing, where it's like, I'm the vanquisher of evil people, and I've built up a reputation as like the slayer of in truth and injustice, or something like that. And they say, in reality, most of the people that actually do take down the bad guys, and such and so, those aren't angry people. Those are cool, calculated people that understand the concept of dissonance, and can get in the mind of the mistakes that the other person's making, and saying, I was able to figure it out and defeat the other person because they were angry and I wasn't angry.
Okay, I see. And then, like, I mean, that reminds me of, I don't know, I'm a huge baseball fan. It's probably my favorite sport. I'm a Cub fan, and Steve Stone was a longtime color guy under Harry Carey, and then under his grandson's Chip Carey. And he was a pitcher. He was a curveball pitcher, not a power pitcher. He once won a Cy Young late in his career in a surprise season in 1979 for the Orioles. And one of the things he always would say in criticizing players, in fact, he got fired from the Cubs for criticizing both the manager and the player for like going nuts during a late season collapse in 2004. But he says, in baseball, more than almost any other sport other than golf, you'd always say anger works against good performance, especially for a pitcher. Because a pitcher, maybe he gives up a home run on a hanging breaking ball, and it's a big game, but you got to get to the next pitch. And if you're angry, you're not going to get that next pitch in that exact location where it needs to be to get the next batter out, because baseball is about
The
getting
studies
out.
are conclusive in every field. And it's like,
Yeah.
okay, Trump is a counterpuncher. It's like you attack Trump as a rule, he will attack you back. And it doesn't matter, the scenario. It's like, or like, like when you're a kid or something, like, like Back to the Future, like he dared me, or like he insulted my mother, or whatever it is, and therefore like I lost free will. Someone crosses this threshold, I will lose my free will and predictably act in a certain stupid way. And so to me that's like almost the idiocy of rejecting such a thing like free will, and just saying like, I am triggerable, I have no free will. If you hit these buttons, I will act in a programmable, determinative way, as opposed to someone's like, I have control of myself. There is nothing that you could do that will make me lose control. You might temporarily trigger me, but I am the controller of this person and ultimately the decider of the action that I have. And it might be determinative that someone like you, I don't believe in free will. And maybe, I could even hit back on you like, well, obviously, because you don't have free will. Any idiot could just take away your free will by saying a comment, and all of a sudden you turn into a crazy maniac.
Well, I prefer to say that maybe the program we're both in together right now, and the vat that we're in is both making us better. And you're my teacher who's helping me control my anger, and I have no free will to do anything other than submit to the best of your advice. But I'm not going to let you get the free will argument in. I have no free will to support free will. It's not happening here. No free will. But I appreciate that.
And God forbid that the defense of free will is saying, I'm not going to change. I'm going to keep on being the crazy spurgs, like idiot that just if someone mentions one of these ideas will uncontrollably spurg out. And if that's, somewhat a defense for your free will, as opposed to say like, I could change. It's within my ability to take control of myself and act differently.
Okay, my last one or two questions, or last topic I'll bring up, because I have like 4 minutes probably I need to get off for the next person. Hopefully it's Will to Power. So if Will is in the stream, please come on next.
Could be Halsey.
Or Halsey. Halsey would be in there too. Although tell Halsey I need my UBI, but from him only. That's not my joke with him. So Halsey has to owe me UBI forever. Just Halsey. Only Halsey. If I left to live in a nation of Halsey, I need UBI. Anyway, I need to start doing my own streams. I only did one with Sienkiewicz, which is really just Sienkiewicz, as he calls it. And it was just exploring a bunch of issues. And I think I kind of want to be a little more like that for a while, and mostly talking about books or ideas. And I guess my area needs to be law and statecraft. I mean, what would be a good suggestion maybe for a first stream or a topic that will launch me well? I'm going to ask that Church of Entropy first, and then Doooovid next. And I think this discussion will kind of conclude my portion on Week in Review.
Well, I think you've done a lot of research, but you need to tie it all together with a foundational ideology. And that'll come when you're willing to learn how exactly the sovereign authority is supposed to work, because it's not a self-evident thing. It's an idea that has to be sort of put into practice. So that would probably be a good place to start, and actually getting an actual knowledge basis. And you're echoing, Gandalf.
I'm sorry.
Just essentially being able to defend your position, because I think you're very idealistic. You've read a lot, but what's missing is to kind of tie it all together with a foundational ideology that you can use to back up A, your axioms, and B, your conclusions. And this is what I keep saying, not just to you, but to everybody, is you have to be confident with your axioms. You have to follow them where they lead, and understand that a misapplication of axioms takes you down the Claire Caw path, where you're paying lip service to ideals like truth, logic, and morality, but what you're saying isn't actually reflecting it, and you have no real way of defending your positions. My positions are strong because I know exactly what my axioms are, and when somebody comes at me with a counter thesis, I can understand that thesis from the perspective of my own axioms and understand why their conclusion or their axioms are not as strong as my own. So that would be my recommendation, not just to you, but to anybody, is get a clear idea of, number one, what is your actual ideology, your values? And it seems like you want to go down the lawcraft route. So I encourage you to do that. And also, what is your online persona going to be? Because you want your online persona to be very similar to your real life persona, but slightly different, i.e. you're going to exaggerate the qualities that are going to make for a good stream and minimize the qualities that aren't. So it's not about portraying a different personality than what you have. It's about sort of bringing out the best and the most effective elements of your personality, so that it's just more comfortable to put on a slight bit of a mask, so that when people attack you, you're not like as offended by it, but you're also representing your ideas honestly.
Well, that gave me an immediate idea, and it's like I just need to focus and have confidence to get it done, because I don't want to be wrong. I think that's one reason I don't sometimes follow through with stuff. It's like, oh, I do not want to make mistakes. I'm absolutely fanatical about things being perfect, and perfect is the enemy of the good in my case. And I have a friend. I gave you a link in Normie book to because we do some collaboration together, and he knows genetics like inside out. Like he can basically beat anybody in genetics that I've ever seen. His name is Rosie P, and I do a lot of work with him. He suggests that I do Carl Schmitt and then counterbalance him with like some empiricism based on like Herbert Spencer, the great 19th century British thinker, and that maybe I try and find some new synthesis in a new axiomatic basis. So that's kind of like the direction I should take it in. And that's his suggestion, and I take it seriously. And he has a reading list that he wants me to go through that will help me kind of like really firm up a bunch of deeper ideas. And so I think maybe that's the direction I need to go in August here. And once I get OBS and all that other stuff going, I can probably do something well. And, if Doovid has any other suggestions, or Church of Entropy is the final thing to say, I'll just stay and listen to that, and then I'll leave.
Yeah, just to sort of, as a message general for everybody, is that you can't know everything. Even me, who can talk on a lot of subjects, I don't know everything. I have to delegate knowing certain specifics to other people, because one human mind can't hold the totality of all information. So it's important to know where to draw the line and say, look, I'm not an expert on this subject. Like when that fellow man came on and wanted to talk about the Talmud, if I was, more unsure, I might just say, okay, let's talk about it. And just because I wanted to portray the sort of persona that I know everything, but I can't do that. I haven't studied this document, and it would be sort of irresponsible for me to attempt to speak on it without having studied it. And just going by random quotes isn't necessarily going to tell you what the full spirit of the document is, because clearly it's something that requires a lot of study. So know what your domain of expertise is going to be. Know what what do you want to be an expert on, really? So I want to be an expert on physics, consciousness, math, and science. And the applications of that, there will be applications, but I'm going to need to rely on other people for specifics. So that's basically what I would say to anybody is know your, like the Luke Fordism, basically stay in your lane, know what you're all about, try to remain within that, and try to make connections with people who have complementary domains of expertise. So great questions, Gandalf. Thanks for coming on. And
All right.
We'll talk.
By the way,
go ahead.
Halsey, I need my UBI, and thanks for letting me on the stream. And I'm off gang forever. Bye-bye.
If I comment on that real quick, you could pop off if you want, Gandalf, but Halsey might have an interesting take on it. And just from streaming, the key thing of streaming is just to stream. And it might be a humbling experience where, okay, Halsey is almost like a professional streamer or a newscaster. And, look at a business with research and, a lot putting into it versus just a streamer. And let's say Gandalf, he's really interested in Nixon and Kissinger, and he wants to do like a 20-part, 100-hour series on Nixon and Kissinger. Probably not too many people are going to be interested in that. But if he himself really likes the topic and he was saying, I'm making this for myself, where like when I did my original streams, it was more as a learning tool that I did even if I was the only one who watched myself back. It's a good way to practice public speaking. It's a good way to clarify your thoughts. It's a good way to organize your thoughts. So you could just start streaming, just turn on the computer and start talking about what interests you. And it could be humbling where you say, I'm going to do a 100-hour series on Nixon and Kissinger, and I don't care if it only gets 5 views, because not that many people care about Nixon and Kissinger. Or if you're going to figure like you're trying to create some sort of streaming persona, and if you have 100 hours on Nixon and Kissinger that no one watched, it's going to possibly make you look bad versus what you want to get out of streaming. But I would recommend just start doing it and be honest with yourself. If you have these areas that interest you and you recognize that I have a lot of areas that interest me that are not interesting to the majority of people, but it could be you put yourself out there, and if you make a whole series on Nixon and Kissinger, it could be unlikely in these circles, but there is going to be someone out on the internet there that's going to find you, and you'll be able to create your little circle of people that really care about these subjects. So that's what I would recommend. Just start streaming about the stuff that's really interesting to you, and watch it back yourself. Talk into the mic, make a stream, watch it back yourself, maybe do it in 2-speed, and say that it was worth your time to do, even if no one besides yourself looks at it. And then you could consider other venues like Halsey's, the professional streamer, or like newscaster, trying to build up an audience. And that's a completely different thing that is a different venue that you may or may not be interested in.
Welcome to the show, Halsey, a veteran streamer who will be hopefully debating Jay Walker in an easy BTFO on feminism. So we're really looking forward to that one. Halsey, how's your week been, and what's new with you, buddy?
Oh, it's been a great week. It's been a great week. Lots of great streams, lots of great topics. I'm definitely interested in debating somebody on feminism. That'll be really fun. So hopefully he gets the sand out of his vagina and decides to do it.
Yeah, he seems to be a little triggered lately. He did a several hours long video where he said he was going to talk about all my scientific theories, but it's just an empty screen basically for all of it. So maybe we can talk about your appearance on Luke Ford. That was pretty funny with OV there. I've got it queued up.
Announced that he's jumping in the Democratic nomination for president, that the GDL is back. They hit Jen last night, got one of her videos shut down. They're rating streams again, doing their thing.
And not a lot of people aren't going to know who the GDL are, so tell us about them.
I think it's funny that people know who Jen is, but they don't know who the GDL is.
The GDL are just a bunch of
you mentioned Adam Green, because when I was on Adam Green, that later that night, my Ask the Rabbi got rated by, and I actually put the link in the chat. I let Handsome Truth come on for like 45 minutes, and I basically just like let him say his piece until he left. And he went on and said how he doesn't like Adam Green. And then I mentioned to Adam Green that Handsome Truth in a private message, and he told me they don't like each other. So possibly they had worked together and originally liked the idea of GDL, but according to both of them, they're not really fans of each other.
Oh yeah, I don't think they talk anymore, but they both started the GDL. This was like their thing, is they were going to go, and I think that Adam Green was too afraid of his channel getting shut down. So he broke with Handsome Truth so he could keep doing his thing. And Handsome Truth is radioactive to have on your stream. I mean, the guy's got something like 37 YouTube channels, and half of them have already been shut down. So he's just a very toxic person. But he's also a LARP. He's also just making his shit up.
I just let him say what he had to say, and then I was like, I'm sorry you feel that way, until he ran out of steam, and then that was it. It's like, okay, I'm sorry you feel that way. And then he got tired of spewing and left.
Yeah, that's the way he always is. And I just don't really have any respect for someone who sits there and he goes live on his own streams, and all he does is look for people like Jen or you or me or anyone else, and he goes, "Ooh, so and so streaming, let's go nail the chat." And he directs his tiny audience to come into your chat and start causing problems. And what they're hoping is and they don't understand, basic online marketing. But they hope that all their downvoting and Fed posting in your chat will get your channel shut down. And they also mass report it, but it doesn't usually work.
Yeah,
So
it was a real shame because we were doing a debate. I don't know if you caught it, Halsey, but Claire and I were debating about whether God was personal or impersonal, and we wanted questions in the chat about the debate so that we could answer them and continue the debate. And they come in and start just shitposting about completely irrelevant things like GDL talking points. Like, this is just completely bad protocol. Like, it's not my job to allow randoms to come on and just hijack the direction of my stream and then have them attack me because I'm not going to like go through all their questions that the mere act of answering them would probably get my fucking channel shut down, right?
oh, for sure. But you should just at this point, I mean, it's not even worth it. The minute I see a single one of them, they just get banned. I don't even play with them anymore because it's pointless. All they do is show up to say, "Oh, the Jews did 9/11," or something really stupid like that. And then they're hoping that they can just basically crowd out your chat and get anybody who is interested in hanging out to leave, before they severely downvote your channel. So I don't even play this stupid game anymore. But I mean,
But you're above and beyond anyone else in our sphere because you're also like an investigative news journalist with your own news site. So even like Luke Ford, who does interviews, or me and Jennifer that just have a few areas of interest that we want to find common people to talk about, you're actually also have a branch of investigative journalist.
True. And I mean, we investigated the GDL exhaustively. I mean, they're paid by left-wing billionaires. They're a complete LARP. They don't really care about Jews. What they care about is that when people step back and go, "Oh, there's Nazis afoot here," they go, "Oh, there they are." They're the ones that are like Pat Little. Pat Little was another one, and that's why he disappeared. And notice how Steyer announced that he's running for president, and all of a sudden the GDL cropped back up. They had disappeared for a while too, and now all of a sudden they're back in full force now that Steyer's running for president. So it's one of those things where we
what drives you is saying like, I didn't care enough. I mean, okay, they rated me and it's kind of stupid and whatever. Like, I hope I don't have problems with them. But what drove you to, be interested enough to be an investigative journalist? And I don't know if you cost money out of your own pocket that you had to pay, people to investigate, or you just did it out of your own time. But what caused that drive for you, or was it a profitable model that you thought as a news service that you could focus on certain stories that weren't being covered? As some sort of business model, or just your own personal desire to get to the bottom of certain news stories that no one else is getting to the bottom of?
I mean, I've always been into investigative journalism. I've been an investigative journalist for probably going on 20 years now. But I mean, I've always enjoyed it because I don't sleep much. So when I need something to do, like the best thing to do is really start looking into the things I'm interested in. And politics has always been my number one. So, I mean, I've went to school for investigative techniques. I have my PI license. I mean, I went to school for investigative journalism. So I know what I'm doing. And I ran the politics department for the Inquisitor. I've run the politics departments for a couple other publications. So when all said and done, I enjoy it myself, but I know other people do as well. It's just we're in a different time now. It used to be that you investigated to try to find kind of little hidden gems here and there of data that got away. But nowadays, I mean, everything is everywhere. So if you set people out just investigating for you, what you're going to wind up doing is getting dozens and dozens of links every single day. They're going to point mostly to bullshit, or at least very unsubstantiated claims. So it becomes much more difficult, But
No,
I enjoy it.
That's why we're asking you.
It's a very difficult thing right now because it used to be like you think about Deep Throat, and you mentioned Nixon before, right? And you think about the guy who exposed Watergate. They met in a parking lot somewhere, and some papers were shown to people, and that's how it worked. But they've tightened up systems since then, and now everything that you would need in order to get that kind of data is illegal. You can't hack into servers. You can't steal confidential work documents. There's privilege all over the place. So it's very unlikely now that someone's going to come out of nowhere and say, "Oh, by the way, I've got some data for you," because there's a good chance that even if that data exposes some huge problem in the world, they're going to go to jail over it. So at this point, what you have to really look into is what are people saying? What businesses are they registered with? How is it that those businesses interact with whatever political philosophy that they're claiming to have? What access to data do they have? That's a really big way that you investigate at this point. Like Tom Steyer is a perfect example. His brother runs a company called Common Sense Media, right? Common Sense Media does all of the ratings for Netflix, for ABC, for Amazon Video. So they're the ones that tell you whether something's friendly or whether something is not appropriate for teenagers or anything like that. And if you notice, their political philosophy is baked right into their rating systems, because they'll rate like a story about teenage trannies as being friendly, but something pro-America as being 18 plus. And I'm not even talking about something violent or something like controversial, just pro-America will be 18 plus. So when you look at the amount of data that they're able to gain from just Common Sense Media, you know they have a leg up on a lot of the people that they're competing with for political position, because they're able to use the same type of data that Trump did to get elected with Cambridge Analytica. So when you look at these things and you tie them together, all of a sudden you can understand why different people run for office, what they're planning to do to win office, and how they're going to start bucking the system in order to affect change. Then it becomes very interesting.
And how does that fit into your overall model of streaming? So that's just one of your areas of your news service. You also just like interviewing, and you could talk to Church of Entropy about quantum mind and reincarnation, and that's interesting, or just generic conservative politics or Israel, or bringing to light interesting people, or is this one of the greater arms of what you're trying to do?
Investigative journalism is not really part of my stream. It's something, if I have a big, like when we broke the thing about the GDL, we did a couple big streams about it. But normally we don't talk about investigations, we print them, because putting things into print is a lot better, especially with the way they censor these days. I mean, you could lose videos very easily, or videos can be edited. But when you put something in writing and you host it on your own servers, you know, it's a lot easier for people to check your sources, to read things up, and to not take things out of context. But my streaming career is I just love to talk. So, and I love to talk about so many different things. I'm an expert in Middle East and Far East politics. So I'll talk about Asia or the Middle East until the cows come home. I love talking about political theory. So I have a lot of people. We talk about feminism, we talk about communism, we talk about conservatism, we talk about that. The only thing I don't really do is like breaking news. Like I don't do streams and say, oh, this and this happened today, let's discuss, you know, what happened and any details that came out. Like I really don't get into that.
But you're gonna have Jennifer on Tuesday, and like, what are you gonna talk about? Or just like you don't mind talking about quantum mind and reincarnation? You know, just splice in like Science Tuesday or something like that.
Here's the thing, and I said this on Luke Ford, and I will say it again, and this is just not being stupid. I love Jen. I think that Jen is awesome. I like talking to her. I like the things that she comes up with. So on Tuesday, I'm just planning on talking to Jen about Jen and about Jen's brain and the stuff that Jen knows a lot about, because I think my audience would like to hear it, because I enjoy to hear it. So it's that the way that I look at it is, if I want to hear about it and I'm into it, that's why my audience watches me in the first place. So I want my audience to hear about what Jen's into.
We're moving more into formal debate, which is more impersonal than, you know, you had been pretty famous in blood sports. So I guess you're investigative when you did blood sports, and you could dig up information on the person, maybe like Mike Enoch or something like that, where if it was me talking to him, it would have just been talking about the ideas, but you actually, you know, dug up information or looked into him and were ready to attack him on a personal level, and that hit him hard, like he wasn't expecting it. And a lot of your debates, it was maybe your investigative style, where you had possibly mud to sling in the era of blood sports that made you quite good at it. However, we're moving more towards you know, impersonal, talking about ideas, where the, you know, it doesn't really matter the person conveying the argument. It's more just you know, we're talking free will, we're talking logical proofs of God, we're talking feminism, and we need someone to be the affirmative and someone to be the positive, the negative, and it doesn't really matter the personality that happens to be taking that side of the argument.
So I'll tell you a funny story. You'll be into this, right? Mike Enoch, when I was on with Andy and JF and Nick Fuentes, and we had our thing. supposedly Mike Enoch was going to show up that night, but he couldn't because he had his own show. So he promised the audience that me and him would mix it up like the next week. Right? At that moment in time, I didn't have the slightest idea who Mike Enoch was. But because he was challenging me, I was like, oh, fuck up Mike Enoch. I'll rip his ass and whatever. Because number one, my fundamental belief is that a person that reviews evidence and sees what's going on in the world and comes to the conclusion that it's all the Jews. There's no other problems in the world except for the Jews. That's all the problems there are. So if we just either get rid of them or kill them or whatever it is, like, that'll be all good. That is inherently fraud, because only a retard comes up with that type of conclusion. So my thought is they come to that conclusion and go, this conclusion will make me money. But I know just as well as anyone else that it's completely retarded. Right? So, but anyway, when Mike Enoch and we were planning this big thing for the following week, I had to figure out who he was. So I went to my Discord and I just asked a few people. I was like, hey, who is this Mike Enoch guy? Because I'm going to be debating him next week. And there were 2 articles that were in the New York Times. One was the one that doxed him. And the second was Laura Loomer talked to his mother like a week later. So I just read both of them. And the thing about the Jewish wife was in there. And like the thing about him being kind of a social outcast his whole life was in the second article. That was all I read to prepare for it. But I just prepared to go after him one way or the other. But then someone else had told me, like, oh, he's been in tons of debates. He wins them all the time. And for some reason, no one's called him out on the Jewish wife thing. So I figured, well, I mean, you don't have more low-hanging fruit than that. I mean, a guy who's sitting here claiming that Jews are the most evil thing on the planet, but yet he's married to one, having like a Nazi podcast in his closet. Like, how do you not bring that up? How do you debate an idea where he's making a claim like that when he has no moral authority to make it? That's what I say about David Duke, too, is that he claims, oh, I just want to debate the ideas, but not myself. It's like, dude, you're a fraud. You ripped off your followers and told them you were going bankrupt and took the money and went and got drunk and got hookers and went to casinos with it. If you're going to make a moral claim that affects people's lives, then you have to have a moral character that allows you to make those kind of things, those kind of statements. So it is on the table. It's not me just calling David Duke a fraud and a liar and telling him that his face is filled with Botox and steroids. It's also the idea that he's claiming moral authority to say people are good or bad or people should be hurt or not. And when you're going to make that claim, everything's on the table, because a person has to evaluate you personally as well, and not just the crap that you're spouting in order to make that determination. So I don't think I went after them, just to be a dick. I mean, when me and Mike Enoch first got into it, the first thing he said is, I know what you are. You're like every other Jew. You just want to censor me. I said, Mike, absolutely not. If it were up to me, I would give you the biggest microphone out there. I want people to hear you because they're going to realize what a fucking idiot you are. It's only these people that don't get to hear you and just kind of hear about a legend and stuff like that they come to these weird conclusions because no one's actually listened to the garbage that you espouse. I want you out there. I want you on the front page of the paper every day talking about your philosophies, because I really believe that people will see what a moron you are and they'll be able to make the decision properly, as opposed to just hearing about this guy that's good at blood sports and makes Jews look stupid. So, I mean, that's how it went with Enoch. Same thing with Dawson. I didn't really know who he was. I mean, someone told me, oh, he's a complete conspiratard. So I was like, oh, okay, well, let's see what he thinks. And then when I heard him say that, like, the Holocaust is a myth, and, he started making up stuff about the Jews killing JFK, and, that, all of these nonsense things, I was like, oh, okay, well, the guy's just an idiot. So, okay, I'll go after him on the fact that he's an idiot. And that he just makes this shit up as where he goes along. It wasn't that I was trying to go after them personally, but when a person is so flawed that they can't even come up with a rational argument for anything, then of course it's on the table.
But you were able to somewhat become friends with Dawson.
I still am.
I mean, you didn't end up becoming friends with Enoch, even though to some extent you might have originally put Enoch and Dawson in the same boat. Somehow you end up friends with Dawson.
Well, funny enough, about a week after my battle with Enoch, we found ourselves on the same stream together with I forgot the guy's name that ran it. And we were pretty cordial to each other. There was no like bad blood. It was talking about Syria, so it was something that we all basically agreed on anyway. There was like 7 or 8 people on the stream. But then after that, Enoch had scheduled a second debate with me. It was supposed to be him and Stryker versus me and my buddy Tom. And then Enoch bowed out a couple days before the debate. He said he was too busy. And he never even told Stryker. So when Stryker was like, "Oh, I can't wait till me and Mike Enoch kick your ass on Wednesday," blah, blah, blah. I was like, "Bro, Enoch bowed out. You're done. Like, you don't get to come on and debate me without Enoch. He made a deal. And until he sticks to it, like, I don't really care." So that's when we had scheduled the one with Colette and with David Duke that Stryker snuck onto. And since then, they have this platform of no platforming me. So they will not participate with anybody who talks about me or go on any stream that has me on.
Yikes, that's a lot of drama.
Oh, it's so much drama, but that's why I don't care anymore. Like, if Mike Enoch wanted to debate tomorrow, it would be more of a joke than it would be anything else. Like, I'm not sitting here like, "Oh, I can't wait to debate him again," or "I really want to goad him into a debate." Like, I don't really care about what he has to say anymore.
Yeah, I think what we're kind of moving towards is eventually we want to get to structured, formal debates where each person gets a chance to really craft a narrative and present their position as more than just a series of facts, but a narrative plus facts within the context of that narrative so that the audience can kind of see, okay, this debater has this narrative and they're presenting these facts. This debater has this other narrative. They're presenting these facts, and kind of learn not just about facts, but also about metafacts, aka narratives. So that's really what Doovid and I are working on. And it's great to see Doovid's channel growing. Halsey, I noticed you're always seeming to get more viewers. So congratulations. That's just great. I think it's really positive so long as people don't become unilaterally focused on the interpersonal drama. I think we kind of see where that kind of goes wrong. Did you have any comments about what happened with OV on Luke's show? Because I noticed that you got on when he was there kind of shit talking the Wignats, which then turned into a conversation about me. And I think he really made a fool of himself trying to make me look bad, as people tend to do.
Well, he was another one. Like, he started off saying like, "Oh, well, all I'm doing is acknowledging facts." And then when asked what those facts were, he just couldn't come up with them. You know, like he couldn't spit it out.
Well,
And so
I debated her on physics.
right, but then someone said, "Okay, so what was she wrong on?" And he's like, "Well, we debated on physics." Yes, you said that already.
Conops agrees with me. Yeah, well, Conops is a fucking idiot that nobody respects. That's not a good thing. If Conops is agreeing with you, you probably went down the wrong path somewhere.
And Gandalf's telling me I like the drama more than I admit. I don't say I don't like it. I think it's funny. I just don't think it proves anything anymore. Like, arguing with Mike Enoch about the JQ is silly. So it doesn't even matter what he has to say anymore because I don't actually care. The drama I find funny. The drama is just a way to, like, you know, make myself laugh during the day. But at this point, he doesn't have anything to say. Like, his entire shtick is just tired and old. So, I mean, I talk about much different things on my stream. And you know what? Since I stopped with this whole alt-right, like, whatever thing, like, my stream has done nothing but grow. I have a great audience. We talk about things that are actually important. So there's no reason to care. Like, I mean, there are people in your chat right now, they don't find me trustworthy or I lie and deny facts. Well, that's fine because I don't care what they have to say because they're not my audience. They're not the people that come and listen to what we actually talk about. And they don't have any proof for that. So they just love to use stuff like that to come out and, you know, try to smear me or try to make me seem kind of dishonest about something. But if I ask them what I'm dishonest about, then they usually just make something up. Like, they'll say, "You believe Israel can do no wrong." I'm like, I've never once said that. So, and they'll say, "Well, you believe that Israel did this." And I'm like, didn't say that either. You know,
Now
oh, well,
I mean, you have a relatively large platform now. So I was talking like Gandalf or something. If he wants to build his stream, that you know, he could appear on a show like yours, and then instead of having 0, 1, 2 viewers, he might immediately get 10 or 20 viewers just from you know, you platforming someone. So I mean, how are you working with that. So you like Jen, you're willing to platform her and happy to help grow her streaming career. Are you doing that regularly? Do you like that ability to to be able to help someone along their path and give them viewership and amplify their ideas?
The only thing I ever ask of anybody is that they give me an idea of what they'd like to talk about before they come on, unless I already know them. Like if you asked me to come on, I wouldn't have to say, well, what do you want to talk about? I would just schedule a stream with Doovid because I enjoy talking to you. Same thing with Jen. Like Gandalf, I just don't know what he wants to talk about. If he says, I want to talk about UBI, I want to talk about millennials or whatever, I'm always game to hear stuff about that. If he said, I want to talk to you about how the earth is flat, then, probably not all that interested. And I don't, because I don't think my audience would be either. But
now that your platform has grown, because like when I first started, you were streaming pretty regularly, but you had a relatively small platform, so you were appearing on other channels like Brundle when he started. Luke Ford, you would still appear on Luke Ford relatively regularly, or JF, but now it appears that you don't need to go on other because you built up your own platform. And now if you're looking that you could provide that same venue to other people who is like, when I stream, I get no one watching me. So maybe if I could appear on Halsey's show, that I'll be able to get a few viewers that will, listen to my content.
Number one, I'm happy to do it just for that reason. If someone says, listen, I really want to grow my channel and I'd love to have a talk with you about X, I'm happy to do it. I think it's good. It's good karma. It's good practice. And also, you never know, when you're going to have a really great conversation with someone. And I mean, you're right. But before the alt-right debates, I would get maybe 20 to 30 viewers, on my platform a night, or a stream. Now I get usually about like 150 on one YouTube. I get about another 100 on another YouTube. I get about 250 on DLive, and I get about another 300 or 400 on my website because I have a lot of weird people that don't want to log into any Google accounts. So you can watch the stream on the website without having to log into anything. So, I mean, we have a good audience, and we keep growing our sub count. Every week we're growing by, I would say, a good 5% of our count. We get another 5% every week. So I'm happy to do it. I enjoy it. And as I said, unless someone like really rubs me the wrong way, like if someone's like, hey, I want to come on and I want to talk about the JQ because I'm going to make you Jews look like idiots, like, go find your own platform. I don't give a shit about that kind of stuff.
What about the for-profit model? Because like I'm about to hit 1,000 subs, God willing, and I don't know like if I enable super chat, if people will be super chatting me. I don't think monetization, like I don't have enough viewers where monetization, possibly super chat will provide a venue. How is your profitability model where you thought about possibly doing it as a business? Do you think that's viable, or you're saying you're not planning on quitting your day job?
So here's the thing with monetization, right? If you have a video that gets like, let's say 2,000 views, okay, from monetization, if you're fully monetized, like they don't determine your content is inappropriate or anything like that, which is rare, you'll make maybe a cent, maybe two. Okay, like there's no money to be made unless you're getting tens of thousands of views on straight monetization. With super chats, yes, it's cool to get super chats, but remember, YouTube takes 30% of a super chat. If you do it through Streamlabs, they take 2. So, I mean, I tell people during the show, and I still get super chats, but during the show, I tell people like, if you can use the Streamlabs link instead of the super chat, if you can, because less of the money goes to Google. And also, I find this very important for all streamers now. If you can, sign up for Subscribestar. It's better than Patreon. They're not assholes about demonetizing people. And they, what's it called? They allow you to have a low threshold to join. You can have your subscribers pay $1 a month or $10 a month or $50. You can make tiers, but it's also a great place that you can put out like exclusive content. Like I'll put a video on my Subscribestar on a Monday, and then I won't put it live on any of my channels until 2 weeks later. So the people that are my subscribers, they get to see it early. They can share it earlier. They can show it to other people before it's available to the general public. And I host streams with my subscribers where like they're the only ones invited, and they can do like an AMA where they ask me whatever they want.
So is it viable for someone who likes streaming where, I mean, obviously you have a day job, you have skills, that you were saying it's nice to have supplemental income or to be able to make money doing what you enjoy doing. But will you say streaming is basically an impossible way to make money? Or are you saying like, no, if you could get a few hundred viewers and people interested in your content, you could probably make a middle-class living doing it?
I mean, I put a donation goal on every stream that I do where I say how much I'm looking to make for the month. And usually that amount that I put on is like what I need to supplement my income to keep streaming at the level that I'm doing it. So if, let's say right now, I usually stream between 4 and 5 hours a day, right? So the amount I put on my Subscribe Star or on my donation goal for the month is how much I need to make up the income of me not going out to work for those hours, and I'm very happy with it. And yes, you absolutely can make a living doing this as long as you're honest with people and as long as you tell them that that is your goal. If you tell your audience,
discuss her yoga plans with you?
Well, no, but I like the idea of the topic.
I haven't really thought about it too much because making money off this is kind of the last thing on my mind right now. And I've toyed with the idea because people have been asking for me to do yoga videos, and I'm open to it, but yeah, I would need to get paid for that because that's a significant investment of my time, and it's not my number one goal right now. I used to teach my classes for free, but I was making like almost 6 figures at my job, so it was no problem to do a volunteer stretching class at the university. I was happy to do it. But if I was going to start that up again, I would need some type of financial recompense for that. So that's still an idea that I'm basically open to, and basically funding the sessions on a per class basis. So we'll see. I haven't put too much effort into that because I've been too caught up with all the teaching and everything else that I'm doing. But yeah, it's on the back burner. And when I do get my Patreon set up, I will let everyone know how they can support me. So
You
thank you.
said Subscribe Star.
I think Subscribe Star is way better than Patreon.
Awesome. I'll look into that, Halsey. Thanks for the tip. Really appreciate it.
But that's also, I'm a little biased. I got thrown off of Patreon, so they allowed me back. I appealed it and I was allowed back, but they're getting really into the whole censorship thing too, and they're even willing to censor off platform. So if you've never done anything wrong on their platform, they're still willing to say, well, you did on this platform, so we're throwing you off. And it's very hard when someone becomes a Patreon of yours that pledges monthly, that if you get thrown off, that they still will come and follow you to Subscribe Star or, anything like that, because usually they don't have a way to reach you at that point, so I just think Subscribe Star is way better than Patreon.
All right. Sounds great.
But the thing about making money streaming for whether it's yoga videos, and don't get me wrong, you could probably make a fortune doing yoga videos. But if you're looking to make money on a stream, you have to level with your audience, and you can't just be like, oh, everybody loves money, so please send me super chats or whatever. You have to say, listen, if you would like to see me at the level that I'm doing now, if you think that the stream is worth it, please try to help me out. And you have to remind people every day. You have to keep a full description in the video, hey, these are the different places you can donate to me. You have to remind people 1 or 2 times during the stream, hey, I'm working my ass off to provide this amount of content for you, but
show for shekel.
Yeah, you really do. And you know what? It sucks sometimes because you don't want to constantly be asking people for money, but at the same time, if you want to do this and not go to work, constantly, then it's something you have to do. If you're comfortable enough that you don't pay rent or whatever it is, and you make enough money at your job that you're fine, then cool. Then just make enough money at your job and don't chill for anything. But if you're looking to do this for a living, you have to be able to level with the audience and tell them what you're looking for. And as I said, I put it up as a goal. I have a little sliding scale that says I'm looking for $1,600 this month, and every time someone donates, it updates. So it says I'm at 50% of my goal. I'm at 60% of my goal. So, it's a good way to be. And like JF, you constantly hear him saying please support my Patreon, please support my Subscribe Star, please support whatever it is. And people will help you out. And your viewers, most people see this like me. I see this as, I don't watch TV. I don't really watch movies. I've watched one movie in the last 4 months. you know, and like me paying to other streams to keep them going, that's my entertainment. That's my TV. So if I'm not willing to throw out a couple bucks every month to the content creators that I like, they might stop doing it. And then what am I going to do? Then I have nothing to watch.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just like totally into the streaming culture and the personalities and everything. I have lost interest in TV with the commercials and whatnot. And I don't think I'd want to have commercials on my channel. Just I'd rather have people feel like there was no duty to pay me for what I'm doing. Kind of feel like it's a religious service that I'm doing here. But yeah, I do have to support myself at some stage. So thanks for reminding me that may be something to take into consideration at some stage, and maybe do something separate from these streams, which will remain free, and maybe something like a stretching videos that could be a pay-per-view kind of thing, and only the people who pay for it can actually watch them. So thanks for reminding me. That's something I definitely need to think about.
Well, because the last thing you want to do is build an audience. You get like, let's say 50, 100 people watching every time you come on, and then you just disappear, you know, because you can't afford to do it anymore and you had to go take a full-time job and you don't have time to really stream anymore. Then when you do go live, like people don't even pay attention anymore, or they figure that
if it's underreported ideas, I mean, if it's like Gandalf and he just wants to create a circle of people that really like talking about Nixon or Kissinger, or if it's like, you know, Doooovid, who I just have a few ideas that no one else is talking about, and really I just want a community, or, you know, it's like a week in review that centers around quantum mind and consciousness, that there could be, okay, I'm never going to make money off of this. It's always going to be an effort, but it's a community that I'd like to create because of their ideas that are interesting to me, that I don't think any other media service is ever going to be promoting this content. So I have to step up and do it myself.
Well, I mean, from what I understand, like I've watched videos on it and I've read articles about it. A lot of people, that's how they start their channels. They just say, I want to get this information out there. I want to have these conversations. And when it gets to a point where you realize like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this instead of this job, then okay, you've made it that far, but you're not looking for it to become a career yet. Like you're not starting your channel with the idea, this is going to be my job, you know? But I mean, I kind of started that way. It's something I wanted to do. I wanted to get into it, but I didn't expect that I would be doing it as often as I am now. So I would say just keep doing what you're doing. I mean, you're a guest on shows all over the place. Like how many, I can't even tell you how many times I've seen like, oh, such and such live with Doooovid, or, you know, like
I love
you go on more
Judaism.
shows than I do.
Yeah, man, basically I just love Judaism. I like talking about Judaism, and Jennifer ended up on the side because I also like reincarnation and quantum consciousness, that it was like, oh, okay, I'm going to stream with Jennifer, even though we don't share Judaism in common, because this other concept of the hard problem of consciousness and quantum mind and reincarnation was interesting enough to have that, you know, that streaming also.
I mean,
but yeah, I do the Judaism just like you. When you first started doing the blood sports, I don't think you ever even, you know, fathomed like the making money. Just like, I love being a Jew, I love talking about it, and I'm going to keep on doing it because you know, it's a privilege to be able to become a recognized personality on YouTube spheres that you know, people look for someone to represent Torah or answer questions about Judaism. It's an honor to be the person to do it.
well, I mean, you already got that title because a lot of people come to you when they want to ask questions about Judaism, you know, and that's regardless of your political positions on different things. Like people want to hear what you have to say, so why not keep saying it, you know? I got to jump off though, guys. So I got a couple things I got to do. I have a stream at 1.
Thanks for coming on, Halsey. We had a great time chatting with you. We'll look forward to setting the. I'm not sure if Jay is still open to debating because he just sent me like a novel in an email, so I have no clue if he's still interested in debating. But if we can set that up, that'll be awesome, and we'll set the time as soon as we can get everyone's schedules to line up. So thanks for taking the time to come on our show. I've shared the link to your channel if people want to subscribe to Halsey. They can, and we'll say goodbye for now and maybe wrap up the stream because some people in the channel want to start a chill stream. So we'll.
Okay, great. And hopefully we still do plan on doing that debate between me and Jennifer on logical proofs of God. But I was just caught up and I wanted to have, like, if I were going to do it, wanted to do it right. So hopefully in the next like 2 or 3 weeks, we will do that debate. And if Halsey's still willing to moderate it, that'd be awesome. But, we're still trying to create the proper debate culture and do it right before we do that.
It's going to be a pretty complicated debate, so we'll take the time that it needs to prepare for it. No problem.
I'm definitely down whenever you guys are.
Thanks, Halsey.
Thanks a lot for having me, guys.
Take care. We'll see you soon. So yeah, we didn't really talk about the OV thing. Did you want to talk a little bit about this Luke Ford OV Wignet falling out thing, or is that just too cringy to even go into?
Yeah, I think it's related to just the downfall of low quality streaming, YouTube changing their rules, and even Luke Ford, seem to have, just been like, I would like to talk about that stuff, but he wants to continue being able to use the YouTube platform, and it's just too likely to, because he's already streaming on his second channel. He's had super chats disabled. His viewership has been cut in half. So, Luke may, just been a victim of the theocratic dictatorship, and he would really like to be hosting kind of like Irony Bro, still doing the alt-right Worski type stuff, and it's just that YouTube doesn't allow him to do it, and he's not thinking like Halsey. He's not a programmer, or like JF, where he's like he's going to survive even if YouTube doesn't let him, or he's not clever enough like JF to moderate it and stay in control. So yeah, I'm not sure what you had thoughts on that besides just the downfall of YouTube as a venue for these type conversations. And I don't think the Wignet culture is going anywhere. It just YouTube seems to have, and they're probably still going to keep on trolling on YouTube. Like as our channels grow, I don't think it's the last that we're seeing of any of these guys. In fact, if our channels grow, it's just likely that these guys are going to keep on coming back because they want a place for their voice to be heard. And I don't expect them to go anywhere. I expect them to stick around. And our success will just give them more and more a chance to have their voice heard. Hopefully some of them will change. Like OV popped onto my stream, and he has a best behavior. Different people might have different understandings. I'm not sure what your take out of that, or what you exactly thought was noteworthy about OV and Luke.
Well, I think it's too bad that it went that way, and I think a lot of people are disappointed. And,
I mean, from the Luke Ford perspective, you're talking about OV's personal demise, or you're talking about just the general direction that YouTube has taken, that to some extent has been Luke Ford himself's demise, in OV himself.
I'm more talking about the personalities themselves. I mean, I hate to see people fighting with each other and betraying each other. And so my general comment on that is, if you have a problem with someone, it's better to resolve it offline, because the vibe that if you're trying to grow a community, and the vibe that you're kind of giving off to the people who aren't yet a part of it is that you don't have any group cohesion, and you're infiltrated with shills, and you're constantly at risk of being betrayed, it's not going to make people want to have anything to do with you. So I really wish this hadn't happened. And it's a shame that people have to parasitize over these interpersonal flare-ups to get clicks, but recent events, i.e. Claire and Blunder Try stream sniping my stream for hours just to make fun of me and make fun of my guests, sort of goes to show the degree of parasitism going on. When people can't come up with ideas of their own, they tend to, parasitize others. And I don't really like that, but it just goes to show you that not everybody's a great, very good faith actor in this. And hopefully we can move away from the interpersonal flare-ups and just keep it on ideas, in spite of the fact that the majority of people are just letting this sort of descend into constant drama.
But isn't OV, I mean, do you see some sort of demise of his personality, or to some extent he's at the biggest he's ever been? I mean, he's having channels constantly taken down, but he seems to relatively, for what he's trying to accomplish, be at the peak of his streaming career.
Well, I don't really see it that way. I kind of see it as though he's severely compromised his credibility to the point of no return. I mean, his own group has disavowed him, and I don't really see any type of. I don't know how you can possibly come back from that. And it's a shame because it sort of reflects poorly on all the parties involved. I don't know what this guy's deal is. He seems to have a problem with authority. He's always made that very clear that he's like kind of sympathetic to like, quote, anarchist type ideas. And maybe this is just a manifestation of that, or he's just a bad actor who's sowing dissent. I don't really know.
We might be able to rebuild up a different audience. I mean, the fallout, because if it's you're selling ideas, so like I'm selling Judaism, there could be circles of people who are like, Doooovid, we do not want you in our little clique, but there's always more people out there. So if you're in the Wignat type culture and he fell out with accepted groups, there's always more people or new people, or it's always possible he'll be able to make up with them. So I wouldn't read too much into that. And especially from the culture of those people, it's very likely that they might change their mind or they'll be right back. And then there's also the connection between in real life activity and just streaming, where if you're talking about people that are representing people who are actually on the ground part of a movement, like Erica, where she says she's more trying to accomplish something. She's not trying to create a streaming culture. She's someone that's came upon information and she's worried about the direction of society. And she's just using streaming as a venue to fill a public function. So it's unclear if like OV or someone like that, or even some of the people, maybe like Will to Power or something like that, that could have these multiple functions that they're driven and they feel that they need to change society or change the direction of society and using the platform as a venue, but at the same time that they enjoy a good conversation or other venues. They're not just one like a one party issue that they're basically like Norvin or something maybe, who might be ideologically like he's a one issue guy. When he streams, it's basically constantly, I'm here to promote my ideas. And if you're not going to let me promote my ideas, he's going to move on to the next venue. And especially when you have ideas that are largely unpopular or that YouTube does not want on their platform, it becomes more difficult to say, okay, I think most of my ideas are basically in line. I'm not expecting problems with YouTube because I think most of my ideas are in line with the YouTube rules and policy. But if you knew that the ideas that you were promoting were in direct contradiction from YouTube policy, you would have to take a different approach to streaming. And I mean, you probably also where you may not like YouTube or all their theological understanding, but probably your ideas are mostly or even completely in line with YouTube policy and don't see issues besides for how you moderate the people that come on your channel moving forward and working together with the platform.
Yeah, I'm more or less indifferent to YouTube because I'm not really interested in promoting these ideas that are considered taboo. I mean, I think if that's what people want to do, they'll get the message out somewhere. I'm more about promoting ideas and letting people form their own conclusions and being more or less fine with whatever conclusions they draw based on the evidence. I'm just trying to present the evidence for them to draw that best conclusion. And so I'm just trying to be as unbiased as possible and just give everybody a platform and a voice within reason, i.e. keep it on topic and don't do ad homs. And that in and of itself appears to be very difficult, but we'll be going to a post stream pretty soon. And hopefully we can get that sufficiently controlled that it's not derailed by any type of person who doesn't have their thoughts together well enough to really meaningfully contribute.
I mean, post stream like an open mic. I mean, I enjoyed the post debate thing with Claire, where we basically kept the topic to personal versus impersonal God, and anyone who had a slight divergence, it was like, well, can that issue tie into how it relates to a personal versus impersonal God, versus if you're like a chill stream, which is kind of open mic, where you know where maybe someone like FM comes in like, can we talk about the Talmud now? You know, can I come on and or whatever it is, that they're like, okay, I've been waiting a long time and now I want to come on your channel and see how people react to my ideas, even if they're basically completely unrelated to all the other stuff that appears on the channel. And if that's also part of what you're trying to do, you like that open mic, free flow of ideas, and just leaving it open to see, you know, maybe someone else says something interesting or lead to interesting conversations versus, you know, maybe me or Erica or other people that are more like, nah, I know pretty much what I'm streaming for, and the open mic stuff doesn't interest me that much.
I like open mic because it gives you a chance to get to know people and see what they're interested in and help them develop their ideas. I've been teaching for a long time, and as I've progressed in that, I've been interested in teaching more complex subjects just to give myself a challenge. So now I'm on to consciousness. So when people come on, talk about themselves, talk about their interests, it gives me a chance to meta-analyze and teach about consciousness, basically. So that's pretty much where I'm coming from. I'm more or less open, and I love the opportunity to meet people that I really would never, I mean, I'd never have met you in real life, Doovid. You don't live close enough to me that we would have run into each other in the streets, right? And we wouldn't have known off the bat that we had similar interests. So that's basically what I like. Someone like Erica, like, she's a sweetheart. I've known women like her in my life. So meeting another archetype like Erica's is great, because it sort of reminds me of real life and all my IRL friends. So I'm just kind of a friendly person who enjoys talking about the subjects that I'm interested in, which unfortunately most people aren't. And I know that if I want people to eventually be interested in those subjects, I have to create an environment and a culture where they'll be able to express themselves within that context. So that's basically where I'm coming from. It's and I'm seeing a lot of it. I'm seeing a lot of my themes coming up on other streams of people talking about archetypes, people talking about theocracy. And that's basically what I'm after, is people being able to express themselves in a meaningful way. And I think a lot of people don't have the words. They're frustrated. This is where the anger comes out. You know, they don't have the words to express their actual positions. And so I'm hoping to help to give them the words and the ideas to do that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's an important service. Maybe as I get older and time starts ticking, and I see what I want to accomplish, and the vast amount of effort and time commitment that it's going to take to do that, I become more wary about how I spend my time. But I'm fully supportive of what you're doing, and certainly if those people make it through the filtering process to the Week in Review, it's already reached the point. I think when we first started streaming, the Week in Review was one of your more popular programs, and now it might be reaching the point where Week in Review might become one of your less popular programs. But that could be good, and if people make it through the filtering to want to do the Week in Review with me, that's good. But certainly I'm for you in doing these programs, and hopefully you'll be able to open up the floodgates to many interesting people and ideas. And some of that will filter through to the Week in Review, and for people who want to have a more formal, structured research type thing. And blessings. So we could sign off, and I'll let you get to your next stream. And
just in short, I don't ban ideas, I ban people. And I will ban someone when I am convinced that they are simply unwilling or incapable of conforming to what I feel are very simple protocols. So
maybe have a better phrase that say, like, I don't ban people, I ban bad behavior in the spec. Like, I'm not against the person, the colloquial hate the sin, not the sinner. But people have bad behavior, and it's just not fitting. Stream is like private property, and like, if you come into my house, I don't want you destroying my property. If you come into my stream, I don't want you destroying my culture that I'm trying to create. Or even possibly create a venue where my whole platform could be completely destroyed due to bad behavior. and it's just a reality that people have to have a conformity to basic good behavior.
Awesome. And I think talking about some of these subjects that are very contentious and that people have very strong opinions on is a way to sort of train ourselves to not respond emotionally. Because if you really want to build a better world and there's ideas out there that you don't like, you need to approach it in a non-overly emotional way. And that's basically what I'm hoping to do. There's plenty of other emotional streams. If you want to go cry your heart out about something that you're sad about and blame whatever on whoever, well, there are other channels for that. They get more viewers than I do. I'm sure you'll be much happier over there. I'm just doing the best that I can with the information that I have. So hopefully that's enough, but clearly based on the chat, it is not enough and people will never be satisfied. So just keep in mind, I don't want to ban anybody from the chat, but I will if you are harassing either me or other people that are contributing to the chat, because at the end of the day, there's no such thing as free speech. All speech is limited by ideas. And I'm trying to increase people's capacity for ideas, which will increase your range of possible speech. And that's really the best we can do. It's the same with will. It is constrained by the laws of physics, but it is always possible to expand the range of options that you have, that you can act on, and that's the best that anybody can really strive to. So do you have any final words before we wrap this up and go to a post show? And I'll also send you that link, Doovid, if you feel like hopping on at any time, you're more than welcome.
Okay, yeah, I appreciate it. If anyone's watching, they enjoy my content. I'm not usually shilling for subscribers or shilling for shekels. It's not my style, but I'd like to be able to stream the Democratic debates, live, and just the technology. So I'm only like 30 some away. So any of you who, even if you don't like my content, if you just want to do me a favor and subscribe for a few weeks, and then you could unsubscribe afterwards, or even you just want to subscribe for a few days and unsubscribe after, it'd be beneficial for me, so I could do that. And besides that, I guess I'll probably see you next week. Did you have a topic you're going to do in your post stream? Or are you just opening it up to people who want to into whatever topics that the people who want to come on the stream talk about?
I think we're probably going to talk about personalities, online personalities, as well as streaming protocol. And maybe we'll go back to the last two streams that I had, which unfortunately I had to make private. I really don't like doing that. But at the end of the day, the conversations on there can be had again. And I want to have them within the confines of a respectful conversation that doesn't get derailed by bad actors. And so I'm hoping people can maybe temporarily put their main goals aside for the purpose of creating this culture of conversation, and then slowly start to introduce those ideas back at the proper time, i.e. a formal debate that doesn't turn into an emotional kind of shit show.
Okay, yeah, just past midnight here, and I got stuff to do. So if for some reason it doesn't look like I'm going to be able to fall asleep, who knows? Maybe I'll end up on your stream. But right now I'm planning I'm going to probably go to bed soon. So thanks for having the week in review. Blessings. Enjoyed the post stream. If we're not in contact this week, I'll hopefully catch you on Halsey, or otherwise see you next week.
Thank you so much, Doovid. Looking forward to the next time we get to chat. Bye-bye, everyone. We'll see you soon. Thanks, Doovid. That was